Appreciate everyone in attendance. It's great to see you. And first I want to just thank the Sorensen Unity Center for sponsoring this event on the west side. I need to thank the City Council staff and the IMS department for the production. And I also want to thank the west side community for allowing us the opportunity to conduct our meeting here on the west side. This is a wonderful event.
My recording is connected to the sound system, and the sound system is not functional at this moment. So if we could have just 2 more minutes, please. Thank you.
And we're going to take a 2-minute break. Everybody close your eyes, take a deep breath, and meditate. I know you, Ed. Yeah, okay. I'll add that right now. Ready? Okay, we're going to do that one more time. Welcome Salt Lake City to the Tuesday, July 19th, 2022 City Council meeting from the Sorensen Unity Center. It's a privilege to be here on the west side. I first need to thank the Sorensen Unity Center for hosting us tonight. I want to thank the staff, the City Council staff, and the IMS staff for the production and all the behind-the-scenes work that went into us presenting from here. And I need to thank the West Side communities for allowing us the opportunity to have our meeting here on the West Side. It's a privilege to be over here, and it's a great location, and it is kind of a cool black box. I feel like I should be on stage, but I'm glad I'm not. And I also want to mention that we have a Spanish and an ASL interpreters here today. If anyone needs one, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll get the staff. And if the staff could raise their hand, so they know who to point out to. But thank you very much for joining us today. Although masks are no longer required in city buildings, we encourage people to wear masks while here in our meetings since COVID cases are on the rise. We are continuing to monitor the situation and are taking reasonable cautions for the public and staff. As many as you know, there is no public comment during the work session. However, please join us at the 7 p.m. formal meeting tonight here for a public comment opportunity. And of course, the council always invites the public to provide feedback to the city council at any time on general topics by mailing us at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City 84114, or emailing us council.comments@slcgov.com, or calling our 24-hour line 801-535-7654. We'll now move on to item number 1, which is the informational update from the admin. And I'm going to turn the time over to Rachel Otto.
Can you hear me okay?
No. Ashley, try yours.
Is that going to work? Okay. You should slide it back the other way.
Yeah.
There are a lot of devices up here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us here to do our administrative updates as usual. I have Mayor Mendenhall on speakerphone here. She would love to say a few words, although she cannot be here in person. I'm hoping that this will work without intense amounts of feedback. We can give it a try. Hi, Mayor. You're connected. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for finding a way to patch me in. I'm so glad that you're out there at the Sorensen Unity Center, and I'd really look forward to attending, but unfortunately, I am home recovering from COVID-19, so I can't be with you there in person. And thankfully, I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted, and I've got mild symptoms, so it feels like as good a time as any to encourage everybody to remain vigilant, because we've seen these COVID cases spike this summer, and getting vaccinated and boosted is still the most reliable way to ensure that we reduce our chances of severe symptoms and being hospitalized or even worse. So please don't wait if you need to get updated on your vaccine and your boosters. But on just a brief and much happier note, I want to thank the council for their partnership on improving our quality of life, living opportunity to thrive on the West Side. The West Side isn't just a place with incredible potential. It's a diverse and amazing community that already has awesome assets like high home ownership, more kids than other parts of our city, and so many cultures that make our city beautiful. So I thank the council for not waiting any longer and working with my administration to invest and to work with our community, not just do things to the community, but work with and listen to the community to make equity a reality, and understanding that equity and equality are not the same thing. So I appreciate the investments that you've helped us to make in public safety, which is always the top priority for my office, and proud to report that citywide crime is still down year to date. It's 10% reduced, but it in no way minimizes the impacts that are happening along North Temple and other hotspots in our city. So no amount of crime will ever be considered okay or acceptable in this city, and our police department keeps working with you and with our community every day to try to keep our city safe, and we are constantly putting new resources into fighting crime. So these updates that you give us are a great opportunity for not only the PD, but great other members of our administration like Ava and Ashley today to give you updates on things like the community engagement opportunities and the conversations you're having today, and continuing around the consideration of a bond measure for our ballots this November that would make the largest ever one-time investment in West Side parks and open space in city history. we would build the city's first regional park on the west side at the old Raging Water site and improve neighborhood parks and trails throughout. And I'm hopeful also that you will make the investment with us in the Fisher Mansion, in Warm Springs, and in Pioneer Park to bring those parks to a level, those buildings and park to a level where we could finally enter into public-private partnership and see those currently boarded assets of the two buildings activated and made positive for the community. There's 100 other things we're doing, from park rangers to our West Side community investment with the wealth building opportunity through the RDA, to the rapid intervention team that's out there working and addressing homeless encampments as they crop up and offering services and cleaning them, to finally working with other cities in this county to identify a winter shelter before it's winter, and this possibility that it may not even be in Salt Lake City. So there is progress happening. And I'm proud of you for being on the west side. I wish I could be there with you today. And I just want to thank you again and thank all of the members of our team who are in attendance today to support your conversation and learn from the community. Thanks for giving me a moment to chime in.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. So today we have a number of staff here to give you brief administrative updates. I'll start with our kind of typical COVID overview. I'll pass it to Ashley Cleveland and Ava Lopez from the Community Engagement Team to talk community outreach. Andrew Johnston and Michelle Hoon will give a quick overview update on homelessness in the city and our rapid intervention team. Jesse Stewart, our Deputy Director of Public Utilities, is here to report on how the city is doing with water conservation so far this year. And then Fire Marshal Tony Allred will round us out to talk about fireworks safety and prevention in advance of the July 24th holiday. So a few things for you today. I'll go quickly on our regular COVID update. So this week, despite the fact that many of us know lots of people who are struggling with COVID right now, we do have some better figures this week. Almost all the indicators this week on the county dashboard are looking more, or trending in a better direction. We have more people up to date on vaccinations, we have fewer hospitalizations, and we have fewer people seeking emergency care this week. So this is our typical slide on week of case identification. You see that that's been plateauing, is, you know, still high numbers compared to kind of where we started the pandemic, but not high numbers compared to what we've seen when we've spiked late in 2021 and early in 2022. Hospitalizations are down, as I just mentioned, and our wastewater indicators are actually showing a decreasing trend this week. So despite my bad prediction last week that we were going to see a spike this week, this is why I'm not a water quality scientist. So most recent samples from July 12th are looking like we actually have a decreasing trend right now. So hopefully that keeps going in the right direction. So current status here, we are still in an elevated situation. Wastewater shows a decreasing trend. Those subvariants that we're all hearing about, I just want to remind everybody that they are even more contagious and don't seem to have the same responsiveness to vaccines. So stay vigilant, as the mayor just reminded us. According to the New York Times, cases are up 8% in the last 14 days, which is a little bit worse than we saw last week, actually, just a couple percentage points higher, but still kind of trending in the middle of the country in terms of fastest growing cases. So all in all, not terrible news on the COVID front this week. The weekly watering guide, although I don't want to steal any of Jesse's thunder, I know we've all been very thankful for the monsoons we've had over the last few days, at least from a lawn and plant watering perspective. They've been crazy storms, but just a reminder, when you see the winds kicking up and we get those great late afternoon downpours, you can probably skip one of your waterings for the week. So turn your sprinklers off for a day or two. And on to Ava and Ashley.
Okay, can you please turn the slides for me? Okay, Good afternoon, Council. So good to see you. My name is Ashley Cleveland. I am the Deputy Director of Community Outreach, and I'm going to be giving you our updates on our latest and greatest for community engagement. First and foremost, these opportunities are always available through our civic engagement team, and you can find all feedback available on the SLC Gov website, and it's regularly updated with highlighted ways to engage with the city. There is a slide that I did not add, and I will add later on after this presentation, so it can be publicly available. I want to give a lot of room and recognition for the Thriving in Place study. Over the past year, they have held several in-person meetings along with city staff. These included meetings with community liaisons who had conducted West Side and unsheltered specific focus groups, as well as the community working group of several housing and community advocates and service providers. They just finished phase 1 of their study, and that can be found at the thrivinginplaceslc.org website, and they will be returning to engage with community again on the phase 2 ideas and recommendations in the late summer, early fall. Next slide, please. Next, we have updates from transportation. They have the 300 North reconstruction activities going on. This project is in the concept and development phase. They finished 2 initial concepts for public review and comment. You can take the survey at that link provided there, or you can also navigate through the SLC Gov/feedback page as well. And then we also have a series of 400 North bus stop improvements that extend to the west side. Direct outreach physically on 400 North is occurring with constituents along the corridor as needed. So there will be multiple opportunities for the community to engage. More information can be found once again at the Civic Engagement website at our feedback page. Next slide. For 600 North and 1000 North, we have bus stop improvements coming in. They're also doing direct outreach physically along those corridors, and that is going to be occurring with constituents along the corridor as needed. And then we have our North Temple Mobility Hub study, which is really exciting. It's a study to determine the location and conceptual design for a West Side mobility hub. This concept is in draft, and the team will be bringing concepts back to the city and our technical team, which is an internal team, and community advisory committee in the fall. The community advisory committee has been really interesting. They have been providing compensation for people who are on the committee and have been working really, really hard to make sure that those voices are from diverse backgrounds and really valuing their experience as such. From what I can tell, they've been attended very well. Next slide. From the Sustainability Department, we have our Community Renewable Energy Program. It's a plan for low-income assistance and also figuring out how to make renewable energy available where you are. So this is a citywide opportunity, but it definitely is focusing on people all over the city, including the West Side, who have low income but would also like to focus on having renewable energy available to them. Also from the Sustainability Department, we have our resident food equity advisors. This team meets monthly, and they share their experience and knowledge, learn about existing food programs in Salt Lake City, and develop solutions that build upon diverse strengths of their community. So there are a lot of service providers who work with housing insecure folks and people and families who are struggling with having food security within their home, and they meet monthly. Any information about that can be found at the slc.gov sustainability site. Next slide. And then our Love Your Block program, which has been something that's been an amazing partnership between Parks and Public Lands and the Mayor's Office. It's a plan to support the West Side unhoused and housed communities in revitalizing portions of the Jordan River corridor into vibrant community spaces. This is really exciting because they've been really focusing on mini grants that are partnering specifically with various Glendale stakeholders. So if you are not only a resident of the Glendale neighborhood, if you would like to partner with someone there, they've really been working on getting mini grants down the pipeline. And last week I checked, we had 9 applications in the queue. Just on Monday we had 16. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out. Any information that you would like on the Love Your Block program can be found at the Public Lands website. And then the Glendale Regional Park Master Plan. The plan is anticipated to be shared in late August, and the formal master plan adoption will likely happen in fall of 2022. Next slide, and I'll pass it over to Ava.
Buenas tardes a todos los miembros del Consejo. Es un gran placer estar aquí en el lado oeste del condado de Salt Lake City. Mi nombre es Eva López. Soy una de las personas de enlace que está enfocada en equidad y trayendo servicios comunitarios al lado oeste. Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Eva Lopez. I am one of the community liaisons, and I'll be talking about some of the new changes happening on our team. Our director is Weston Clark. Ashley Cleveland is our deputy director. And it's really engaging and exciting to be rolling out this Community Outreach 2.0 plan. I'm really excited. I think our team has really taken into consideration intentional changes and what it takes to be able to bring connections, services, and really that level of services that is demanded in our neighborhoods and communities that are really diverse. So part of this plan, we've been clarifying our roles. Tim Cosgrove, one of the liaisons, is now moved into a role where he will be able to direct larger partnerships, both internal and external, in order to bring high-level services. Some of those may be in use with our CAT team. Those are our community action teams, where we collectively work with our enforcement offices and departments, as well as other service providers internally, so that way we can provide that high level of assistance that we need in different neighborhoods. So those community councils or community members that reach out to us will be able to see, I think, this better plan and operation, so that way they can bring different changes that maybe necessarily were a little bit harder to connect with. So we're seeing more linear process in our operations day to day, as well as adding flexibility to demand. And what that means is you'll be seeing a lot more of the community liaison team, not just on the west side, but participating amongst all our neighborhoods. I'll be talking more about what that scheduling looks like, but the idea is that we're consciously making that effort to be opening up our office hours. So we have something what we call our community office hours, where each liaison on my team will be able to go out and seek and be in spaces where our community members can be found, again, adding that flexibility so that way we can engage as many people in our community as possible. Try to bring services to those residents in need and not expect them to come to us, going out and taking that extra step to meet that engagement. Again, this makes a clear distinction from our communications or public relations from our engagement team, and it allows us to focus on outreach efforts that we want to bring to our city. You can read more about this. I know Weston sent out an email, but our website will be reflecting this and our operations soon enough. So this goes into detail again, just discussing the different titles. So we have Weston Clark as our director, Ashley Cleveland, of course, is our deputy director. Katie Schnell is our executive assistant to Weston Clark. Katie Reiser is our community outreach special projects and volunteer program manager. She oversees the Love Your Block program as the city lead. Tim Cosgrove, so he's the citywide lead liaison that I discussed earlier, and he'll also be helping in District 7. Myself, I'm the liaison for District 2 and 4. I'm really excited to be joining the West Side. Josh Raboyo, who is here in the crowd today too, he's the liaison for Districts 1 and 5, and Hannah Barton, the liaison for Districts 3 and 6. So hopefully that can articulate to the city our changes, and hope to see you all out in these different districts and neighborhoods. So again, what's new? I think the most exciting part, at least what I'm excited for, is to be able to spend time, approximately 16 hours a month of our time will be freed up to engage community in different spaces. For me, that looks like making office hours at the Pride Center, as well as Rancho Market and other spaces. So I think it's really exciting because I've already seen this disrupt the level of collaboration I have with the council office, my counterpart working with Brian Pantel, being able to discuss with civic engagement some projects they have like Paletas y Políticas, which you'll hear about coming up soon. We get to work with Councilmember Puy on it, and it's really exciting to be able to bring this level of outreach in, I think, a unique way, but that's very authentic to the communities that we represent. something that Mayor Mendenhall really cares about is to be able to reflect the communities that we get to represent every day in the city. So part of this outreach will look like canvassing. So if you see me knocking on your doors, Victoria, I'm coming to you. Alejandro, I'm coming to you too. That's because we want to engage with you. We know that there's folks that have never engaged with the city. I myself have gone out with the Love Your Block team, and we knocked on constituent homes that have lived there for over 20 years, but have never, ever heard from a single person in city government. So for us, I think we've challenged our team, and I'm really excited to be rolling that out. Of course, that means providing education, tabling events, and again, setting up these different metrics. Part of that is to be able to track our community office hours and making sure that we're following through with the requests of levels of services that we see from our department. And then, of course, clarification of the deputy role. So this means that they'll be focused on more sensitive engagement, making sure that we're proactively working to strengthen relationships in neighborhoods, listening to community members, and making sure that we're able to provide them with not just engagement, but again, with the tools that they need to be able to be successful in building their communities, as well as building a centralized framework of engagement for the different projects that we engage with. And of course, there was the creation of the lead position, which is what Tim Cosgrove's position will be. So he's the citywide lead. Again, it's that high-level thinking, specifically to work on CAT-like issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Council. It's Andrew Johnston, Director of Homelessness Policy and Outreach for Salt Lake City. And Michelle Hoon is also here, and she'll introduce herself in a second. We have two slides that look familiar to you all, and then we have rapid intervention slides right after that. You can see high utilization rates still at the resource centers in the last week, 97+%. And then update on various things. On the left-hand side in the blue, you'll see that last fiscal year, we had 6,000 mobile app requests through SLC Mobile, and that means that Michelle's team is analyzing each one of those. And so it's a large workload. So they're looking at how to take their staff time and make it more efficient with those requests so they get through the process as quickly as possible and get addressed. You'll see in July there will be a large abatement on the western end of the industrial area. We have a large number of vehicles out there. And then Resource Fair and Kayak Court in the next few weeks in August, second and third week, I believe. Kayak Court did happen last Friday, just south of here on the Jordan River. And we had a number of partners there, 3rd District Court and Salt Lake City Justice Court, which is important because we have a lot of multi-jurisdictional issues, right? VOA outreach, the Rough Haven, obviously there you see a picture of most of these folks actually on the screen. Green Bike and the Jordan River Commission offered kayaks and the support on the river. We'll go to the Rapid Intervention Team next. Oops. Oh, yeah. You got to go to the other slide. And there we go. So Michelle, you can introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Hello, Council. My name is Michelle Hoon. I oversee the Homeless Engagement and Response Team for Salt Lake City. Thank you for having me today. I've got notes on one thing over here and a presentation on another, so you'll have to forgive me for having lots of stuff here. So I'm here today to talk to you about the Rapid Intervention Team and the Site Rehabilitation Program that we have just recently launched about a month and a half ago. As mentioned, the Rapid Intervention Team launched on June 6th of 2022. Rapid Intervention is really both a process and a team, and I'll kind of explain both of those to you. The team includes 4 public services staff and then a coordinator on my team. This team works to clean up different sites that we have deemed in need of rapid intervention. They typically do their work on their own, but they can sometimes do their work in partnership with Advantage Services, the police department, the health department, and they partner very heavily with Volunteers of America, City Outreach Team. So what this consists of, what the process consists of, is an identification of smaller camps that are to be engaged by the city's outreach team. Sorry. Usually for a period of about 1 to 3 weeks, and then a cleanup that's conducted after that.
Can I have you put this up here so you
Yeah.
can get your audio into the mic? Sorry about that. Sure. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, good. So yeah, the cleanup is called a site rehabilitation. It is fairly similar to an abatement, but it's much smaller in scale. It uses less time and less city resources in order to complete it. A site rehabilitation is carried out by the Public Services Rapid Intervention Team, that 4-person team that I had mentioned. And all of the work that is ahead of that, that's done ahead of that, is coordinated by our Heart Rapid Intervention Coordinator. His name is Joseph Ramos. Next slide. Oh, no, this is good, sorry. Never mind. So the outreach period is pretty brief. It's usually about 1 to 3 weeks. The focus is to try to get people into housing if that's possible, and then into other options that are being explored that are more short-term. So things like hotels, motels, detox, treatment, things like that, places for people to be. Our team refers somewhere between 4 and 8 camps over to the VOA for engagement, and then we evaluate that ongoing each week to see how that engagement is going. If they're not getting any traction, then what we do is we refer that camp over to rapid intervention. But if they are in a place where they are really like engaging well with the people who are living in that camp, and they're able to get somebody into a detox in like a couple of days or something like that, then we will re-up that site for another week, so that the outreach workers have the time to do that. This really only works with smaller camps, I will say. We've tried this to varying success at bigger camps, but it really seems like it works really well with smaller camps. Engagement is actually looking pretty good so far, which is great. If you can see on the screen there, this is very preliminary data, I will say, but it's promising. The month before we launched this, our Volunteers of America City Outreach team engaged with 33 people and did not have any positive placements. So that means that they weren't able to get anybody into services, they weren't able to get anybody into housing. After we launched this and we targeted these efforts a little bit more, they engaged with 20 people, so fewer people, but they had better engagement. So they placed 2 people into temporary housing, 1 into substance use treatment, 1 was permanently housed, and 1 secured a voucher and is slated to move into permanent supportive housing very soon. We've gotten really great feedback from them about this. The outreach team is definitely happy with the ability to have a little bit more time and space to focus on camps and really try to resolve those camps through services. As far as the site rehabilitation process is concerned, what that looks like, as I mentioned, it's similar to an abatement, but we don't have to wait for the county health department to be on site in order to carry these out because they are smaller. The city team is small, it's got their own equipment. We can respond to camps pretty much every day if need be, and then we also have them going to different hotspot locations. So places where we know people don't necessarily set up camp, but they do congregate. So places like the Central Business District, like 8th West and North Temple, places like that where we know that there's just an extra need because there are a lot of people. The process goes, we confirm with our outreach team that engagement has been done if that is what we need to do in that site. The site is evaluated by the county health department and my team, and then notice is posted. That usually happens at the end of the week prior to the cleanup. And then a site list and a cleanup schedule is referred over to the rapid intervention team, and then that rapid intervention team goes and cleans up at those sites. Occasionally, they can ask for assistance for things like advantage services to help with bio-waste or for PD to help keep the peace. And then large camps, which we really think of as probably 10 plus people, we still refer those over to the county health department for abatement. Next slide. So this is just some more information that I think can be helpful to you to understand what we do and who we collaborate with, who the Heart team collaborates with when we are looking at different types of camps. So if it's a large camp, we bring in the county health department, we bring in the streets and parks departments, Advantage Services, Still Volunteers of America, really kind of bringing all of those partners together to work out what needs to be done in that site. If it's a smaller to a medium encampment, instead of engaging the county health department, we engage our rapid intervention team. And then if we have abandoned belongings or trash, we send that over to Advantage Services as well as bio waste. Next one. How to report a camp or a hotspot for rapid intervention. Please use SLC Mobile. I know you all are really great at having your constituency understand SLC Mobile and walking them through it. We have only seen increases in SLC Mobile, and some of that I think is really due to the great work that all of our council members have done in getting the word out about that as a reporting mechanism. It really helps us to keep track of where camping is happening, and it helps us to figure out how to better respond, how to more effectively respond and quicker respond when issues come up. And that's it.
Michelle, we have Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions about the site rehabilitations. When we're doing, you said 114 sites in 43 days, that seems like a lot of sites. And then when we go to the slide of how many people accept placement, it's like 1% of those 114 sites, right, of probably the people there. I'm curious, one, as to where people are going that aren't, because it seems like they're probably just moving along to the next place and setting up camp again, and then we go and do the same thing in the next site to rehabilitate. Is that relatively accurate, do you think?
So something that I think is an important distinction to make with the site rehabilitation process is that it can be either an active camp or it can be a hotspot location, and those hotspot locations are visited every day by the rapid intervention team. So that's that bulk. The bulk of the 114 or so sites that have been rehabilitated, those are ongoing sites. Those are places where people aren't necessarily setting up camp. They're more places like 8th West and North Temple, where you don't really see tents and things like that, but you do see a lot of people congregating. So that makes up the bulk of that. The sites or the camps that we refer over to the Volunteers of America, that's really between probably 4 and 8. So I think that they have been able to get through in the last month probably somewhere around like 20, I would say, sites. So it's significantly less as far as the active locations that are being cleaned up. It is really tough, I will say, to know where people go after this process after this has seen its way through.
And when our rapid intervention team goes out and does these site rehabilitations, whether it be referring something to the VOA or something like the hotspots, are we engaging with people there and it sounds like we are from the slides that you were saying earlier, but even those people that aren't necessarily wanting a placement, such that like we may get to know them and see them at the next time and then sort of like see how we can engage more effectively in a very like listening approach, comprehensive approach as to what is going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is, as I had mentioned, engagement is really hard in large camps. Like it just really is. Trying to get out there and actually talk with people who are living in a large camp is pretty challenging. It's much easier in a smaller camp when you have 3 to 5 people around you as opposed to 30 or 40 people around you. You're more receptive to services. The outreach workers can get to know you a little bit better, and outreach is a long-term relationship building process. It's not a quick thing for sure, and so you are going to see people who are in different spots in different camps. That does not mean that outreach workers ever stop trying to engage with that person or just brush them off. They absolutely want to make sure that they're continuing to keep that relationship building going.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes, thank you for the presentation and the update. I have a few questions per the slides that you showed us earlier, and something that is important to me is to make sure that we set the expectations correctly when we are, when we're talking about this with the neighbors. And can you tell me how long does it take usually, I guess, if you know, from someone using their phone to submit a camp until you guys, your rapid intervention team shows up-ish?
It's a really good question. And that largely depends on what the issue is that they are putting into the app. So if it's a situation like an abandoned trash situation, that can be cleaned up within a couple of days, typically speaking. If it's an active camp, it's going to take longer. It just is going to take longer because we want to make sure that we're putting services in front of people first, wherever we can. If it's a really large camp, then we have to wait for the county health department, and that's going to take even longer. So in some situations where you've got camps of 10 plus people, 10, 20, 30, 40 people, it can take several weeks sometimes to get to that point where that case is then closed out. So the simpler things are going to take a shorter amount of time. The more complex things are going to take a longer amount of time. One thing that we are doing on our team is we are making sure that we are kind of spreading the responsibility for monitoring SLC Mobile out among more people to make sure that we can catch those abandoned trash and bio-waste and things like that, those reports quicker, so that we can make sure that we're being as responsive as possible to the constituency.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that. I also would like to, I would like to see when you guys are doing this, to experience it from your side too, and to see how that works. I understand that we don't have enough beds for, even in Andrew's, your first slide that you showed, but I struggle with, with the idea that we basically ping-ponging people around. And again, there is not really a good answer to this, but other cities have found better answers to this. Not to say that they have solved the problem. No one has. I mean, all over the country, we're struggling with this issue. But I want to also put that out there for the nonprofits out there that are working on this issue, the many organizations, also the administration, and there's so many bright people out there and rich people out there that, would like to contribute to an idea. But other cities, and a couple of weeks ago, Victoria and I visited sanctioned camping sites in Denver, and it's my fourth time visiting them. I also visited other sanctioned camping sites in other cities. I also learned about Pallet and Grand Junction that build small temporary communities that are incredible. If I would to say to the neighbors in the West Side, sanctioned camping, I'm sure that some people will just freak out because they are envisioning tents and junk and garbage. But there is a more humane way to deal with this issue. Now the question is, how do we find it? Who is running it? There's a lot of questions to this. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's other cities that are doing this, and they are not pushing people around. At the same time, helping them to stabilize and get them into housing while minimizing the garbage and all the other struggles. And I really wanted to throw it out there, and I have all sorts of connections. And when you see those communities, you won't even know they exist. I mean, you drive by them and you don't realize they are there. And it is impressive. And I feel like we could do more, and I appreciate the administration doing so much more with the new team and with these resources and the creation of this department under Andrew. But I wanted to say that this is a big issue in the city, citywide, but it's a very close issue to people on the West Side, since we see it every day. with campers, trailers, and tents, and everything else that we see in our neighborhoods. So I just wanted to leave it out there.
Councilman, go ahead.
I think we would agree. We've looked at a lot of cities and a lot of the programs you've looked at, and they're tremendous. We looked at Reno just last week again. A lot of those cities use something equivalent to this as a piece of that process. And so what this process is set up to do is to go into situations where folks are unsheltered or camping and help them get into the services like that if they were set up, along with housing, along with permanent shelter, along with all those options. And so this team is set up with a long-term view of saying, if we go to options like that, or other housing options, or other resource centers or shelters, whatever it is, no matter we have of that system, we need a team like this to be able to more effectively help people move from unshelteredness into any of those options, and that's what this team does. So it is an eye towards that, even though we have a lack of resources like you identified.
Thank you.
Councilman Pietro.
No.
It doesn't like me. Okay. I want to amplify everything Councilmember Pui mentioned. I know it's no one's intention, but it does feel like we're pushing peas around the plate, and the peas are tired of being pushed, and the plate is tired of having the pushing happen. So whatever we can do to help support solutions that return dignity to all people involved. I want to just confirm, when we talk about encampments and the rapid intervention, we're talking about RV encampments as well, and it's the correct thing to do to still use the mobile app for RV and for tent encampments?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Where are we?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jesse Stewart, Deputy Director of Public Utilities. I've also got Stephanie Doerr, my colleague from the department, who's our Water Conservation Program Manager here today. If there's any questions that I would need to defer to her, I can just look left instead of giving her a call or something, phone a friend sort of thing. I can make this pretty quick. You see a lot of red up there. It's hot, it's dry. I think everybody realized that just walking into the center today. We're still in extreme drought. There are some portions in southern Utah that are in exceptional drought. That's forecasted to continue for the near term until we get closer to the fall, probably. The monsoons do help in moderation. I think we all know that too. We do like the water, but we don't want too much of it at any too rapid of a time period. I'll go ahead and go to the next one. So some of the things we're doing, we've got the city code for water shortages. We've got the 5 stages, depending on what water shortages are taking place, whether it's drought related or it's some other issue with one of our water sources. Currently we're in stage 2. The goal there is to reduce by 5 to 15%. We're doing that right now. From April 1st, I'm not going to go back all the way to January because I don't want to look at the wintertime water use, but from April 1st through present, our 3-year average, we've saved about 17 million gallons of water a day. And in total, that's about 1.836 million gallons. That's Mountain Dell Reservoir. That's Mountain Dell Golf Course there. You can see the old concrete arch dam that's holding the water back. That's about 1.5 to 1.75 Mountain Dells. So it's a lot of water we're conserving right now. That's great from a conservation standpoint. From a revenue standpoint, we're going to be reshuffling some priorities. And the reservoir there, that's in a full stage. I don't know if anybody's driven up there recently. We're doing work on Mountain Dell right now, so it's a creek going through the reservoir bottom. So it doesn't look anything like that today. Next slide. This is just a depiction of our 2022 use. That's the blue shaded area in the bottom. You can see the red line is our last 3 years average, and then the blue line is our year 2000 goal. You can see we're below our use, 2000 use. Sorry, thanks, Stephanie. You can see we're well below that 2000, and we're below the 3-year average. You can also see some of the spikes there, the ups and downs, where I would imagine if we go back and correlate that, there might have been a storm event at that point, which hopefully you're seeing people respond to that by not using culinary water, but by using the natural water that hit their irrigation system or their lawn or their crops, whatever it might be. You can also see that we had a kind of a slow start. That might have been from a cooler springtime, so we got a late start on that. So weather really does have an impact on this. If we have a cold August and a wet August, you'll see more reduction. If we have a hot, dry August, then we might start creeping back up a little bit. Go ahead. So some of our water conservation program highlights, and I'll run through these quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Stephanie if she has anything to add. Outreach, we've done a lot of collaboration and coordination across the city with other departments, with parks and golf. We're doing some innovative turf studies with them. We're getting out on social media, 100 calls a week on conservation might be coming in, calls or texts. Thanks, Stephanie, for taking all those. We're also using, I think I wrote City Source because that's how my brain works from years ago, so that's SLC Mobile. And then there's a lot of articles and news stories out in the press these days, so I think that's helping just have conservation at the forefront of people's minds, which is definitely helping us. Our water check program, we've got 3 teams out there looking at people's own irrigation systems, residential irrigation systems, doing 45 to 55 of those a week. We've got our water maps doing residential assessments. We're selling turf grass, kind of a turf grass that we're working with USU and others on to develop that's low water or water tolerant. And also sales of rain barrels. We recently had a delivery of 300. They didn't last long in our warehouse. They went quick, so those are all gone right now. We're working with Localscapes and Flip Your Strips. We're doing commercial, industrial, and institutional audits and fixture programs. We're also doing some of our own programs, say at the Concord Lift Station, where we put in some of these demonstration grasses, these wheat grasses, to see how they're going to do. And I think we're having great success with those. And then, like I said, the golf turf study, using adaptive grasses and native plants to help out with some of the golf plantings that are out there. So a lot of things going on with our conservation program. Along with that, with some weather, we're seeing some really good reduction in usage. And we'll see where the weather takes us in the next month. And hopefully that big red Utah diagram will turn less red as we go forward and in the coming years. So I think that might be my last slide. Yeah. Wanted to keep it pretty brief and open it up to questions from council.
Council, any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, Stephanie, yeah, I forgot. I'll let the person who really knows it talk here for a second.
The one thing I would want to add is that while we can look at the weather and know that that affects how people make decisions about landscaping, I'll point to that chart that Jesse showed at the beginning that showed that light blue line, which was the year 2000. We had weather in the year 2000 too. We had good weather and we had hot weather and we had dry weather. If you'll notice now, we use much less water even when it's very, very hot and dry. In fact, the last several years we've had the hottest and driest summers on record. What this demonstrates is that our community has learned. We've given them great messaging. They've improved their practices. We've given them the knowledge they need to make better decisions so that even when it's hot and dry, our peak day demand right now is only around 113 million gallons in a day. 137. The peak demand is 137. Our daily use is around 112, 113. Normally it would be 150 or 60. So the weather affects how people want to water. We're learning to make better choices, and I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Afternoon, Council. I'm Tony Allred. I'm the city's fire marshal and deputy chief over fire prevention for the fire department. I'll just start with a brief overview of what we're looking at going into July 23rd weekend. We consider it the 23rd weekend because that's when we anticipate most of the festivities happening. A brief overview of the situation from a fire prevention standpoint, and then I just want to leave some time for questions and any individual concerns that you have from your constituencies. As you might have heard from The general conditions in the city basically mirror what you just heard from the water department. We recognize the recent rains helped with moisture content in our fuels, especially our fine fuels and our ladder fuels. But that's a little bit of a double-edged sword from a fire prevention standpoint, in that moisture content leads to growth, and growth leads to dry, and dry leads to more fuel. So what we're seeing trending in the area and from our forecasting is that we're a little behind on overall fire danger in our wildland interface areas, but we expect the dry weather to actually extend our critical fires well, probably into October, even November, is what I would anticipate from long-term forecasting. So we're a little bit better off right now than maybe we would have been, but it's going to be a long fire season from what we're anticipating. Statistically, luckily, as far as fireworks are concerned specifically, the majority of personal use fireworks are sold and discharged around the 4th of July. That certainly doesn't say that there's no risk or a number of discharges, as you can imagine, around the 23rd, especially when it falls on a weekend. So it's not insignificant, and our preparations kind of reflect that. So going into the 24th of July weekend, you can expect the fire department to really mirror what we did with the July 4th weekend. We're going to have additional units on duty in the city, 2 Type 6 apparatus, fully staffed, which are the smaller, for lack of a better word, the grass trucks. And then we have a command presence, a captain dedicated in dispatch to sort of triage and respond to calls in real time, be a little bit more nimble with our responses as things escalate throughout the evening. We'll also be obviously fully staffed from our fire investigations unit, which I also oversee. What we've seen with our citizens is actually a really good response to our education efforts. What we see with repeated citizen contacts is that we don't, in general, get a lot of resistance or pushback when we make educational contacts with our citizens, whether that be an inappropriate use of fireworks or fireworks in a closed area. And so over the last few years, that's where we've really concentrated what we call our enforcement efforts, is primarily educational contacts. Obviously, we're not an enforcement agency, but we do kind of pride ourselves on our ability to make contact interface with our citizens, even in the event of inappropriate fireworks use. Going back to only, and that's represented by what we saw on the 4th of July weekend. We had a single structure fire related to inappropriate use of fireworks over the 4th of July, which is pretty outstanding and kind of makes us the envy of a lot of my fellow fire marshals throughout the state when I have conversations with them. And we attribute a lot of that to our residents, responding and supporting the messaging we've been putting out about the dangers of inappropriate fireworks use and the dryness of the community and just the work we're having to put in to keep everybody safe. We also were able to increase kind of our point of sale information this year. As you know, we don't have a lot of control over the points of sale of personal fireworks in the city, state issue, but we were able to, that's really the only place we capture everybody that's buying fireworks. We do some community outreach, but the one place we know we've got them is when they're buying those fireworks. So we've emphasized that, and you'll see that increase next year also. We will be out this Thursday and Friday in the communities with operations crews and our community division doing door hangers and outreach. One in the Highland Park area on the east side, one just a little north here in the Rose Park area. We kind of go by citizen contacts and citizen engagements of where are we seeing concerns, and we did one round of that before the 4th of July weekend, and we're going to have another one Thursday and Friday just so it's fresh on people's minds, and just so they know they're welcome to call that non-emergency line, 801-799-3000, real time with any complaints. Obviously, if something's on fire, the number is shorter. It's 911. But that captain we have positioned in dispatch, he's there to take those calls, have those calls forwarded to him, diagnose the problem, triage it, and make appropriate apparatus responses to all of those. Once again, I can't encourage citizens enough to call real time in those hours. I mean, even if they're saying, on the 4th of July, we had a lot of fireworks in this area. We're happy to pre-plan that. We try to make those units, especially the additional units that are on, be what I call present in the communities. They'll move around, even if there's reports of fireworks in the area with no damage. We will move those units through there, ask them to engage with public they just see around, just so they know that we're around, and it's an opportunity to kind of make some contacts and reinforce the dangers of fireworks use. The other thing we see is just some education on what to do after fireworks use, even in the non-restricted areas, and those units are available for that. So if you have constituent contacts, I encourage you to have them call my office. I do a brief for that deployment and that on-duty captain, and if there's areas of concern that I need him to pre-plan for and send units out to early, that's another option that's on the table, and we will be doing that. With that said, I came prepared with fire number statistics and things like that, but I'll open it up for questions or concerns.
Thank you. Councilman Puy.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I wanted to thank your team because last week we were able to do a video after a structure fire and very close to here in Glendale from fireworks.
The Glen Rose outbuilding.
Yeah. And the neighbor was pretty shaken up about this because it could have been very bad. There was gasoline in that garage. There was all the chemicals. It could have been, a horrendous thing. And something to take away from that, and I know you said it, but is if you see something on fire, regardless if it's your fault or not, call 911. You guys need to know quick about this. Unfortunately, that didn't happen in that situation. Someone, they were scared, and but they are protected. They are protected to call 911 and to tell what's happening. So I just wanted to thank that neighbor that wanted to make a video to tell other people the importance about using fireworks too, because she was like, we all need to take care of each other. So I wanted to thank your team also to jump on this and the administration to allow this to happen. So thank you for making that so quick, and SLC TV also to make it all happen.
Yeah, that was good. I appreciated one of our residents giving us the opportunity to kind of, unfortunately, backstop an unfortunate situation and try to, make an example of it and turn it a little bit of a message. We got a lot of good feedback from that one.
That's awesome.
Councilman Petro.
Hi. District 1, home of the most explosive holidays in the summer. I have no control over anything. I'm along for the ride today. So we have a particularly traumatized community from July 4th. We had a similar situation. It was backyard furniture that thankfully the homeowner was home and it didn't get to any permanent structures. Leading up to the holiday, like currently, I was awakened at 11 o'clock because I'm old and I go to sleep earlier than that. And, we're exploding stuff regularly in my neighborhood already. Are we doing, especially since we are an out-of-bounds area, essentially the 600 North exit west, the sign is there saying we're out of bounds. Is there any additional enforcement going on? And is that police? Is that fire from a city perspective to try and keep the big day less big?
As you know, I won't speak for police, but you've heard plenty on their challenges. It's a busy weekend. We're not primarily a law enforcement agency, and the state statute allows for those illegal use of fireworks in restricted areas to be basically a citation level event. So from our standpoint, what we've seen historically is if I can contact 10 people and educate them about the consequences of fireworks use, what I see is a much bigger impact on overall safety in the community, even if it's a small block area, than the citing of one person. It's just, I I get that neighbors often want that person cited and stuff like that, and but we're trying to look at a global perspective. That said, if someone is concerned about a fire safety problem, and they contact us either through 911 or 799-3000, you will have a type 6 or heavy apparatus respond and evaluate that situation. That's the commitment from the fire department. So, like I said, on that weekend we come kind of geared and ready for education. And if like I said, any of your constituents historically had a problem last weekend, on the 4th of July weekend, that they're kind of forecasting is going to be a problem this next weekend, either from talking to their neighbors or whatever, I encourage them to call my office. My number is 799-4162, my office number. They're welcome to call me directly, and I will include that area in the brief and make sure it's on the radar of our Type 6 apparatus that would be kind of doing the roving extinguishment and enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that it, Rachel? Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Ava, Michelle, Andrew, Fire Marshal Allred, Stephanie, Jesse. Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll be moving on to item number 2, which is the rezone and master plan amendment at the Rose Park Lane. We have Brian with us, and Chrissy, and
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal from City Public Lands to rezone the city-owned parcels at 1902, 1932, 1944, and 1954 North Rose Park Lane from R1 7000, which is residential, to open space. The Rose Park Small Area Plan future land use map would also be amended under this proposal. The stated purpose is to construct an indoor recreation facility on the site, but no specific proposal has been submitted to date. Michaela Respicio Evans with the Public Lands Division is here with us as well and available to address the council and answer questions, but for now I'll turn it over to Chrissy.
So, as Brian said, this is a master plan and zoning map amendment for 1902, 1932, 1944.
you just bring it a little bit closer to your,
And 1954 North Rose Park Lane. The petition was initiated by the Public Lands Department and is a request to amend the Rose Park Small Area future land use map from low density residential to open space, which would then facilitate a rezone from R1 7000 to open space. The property consists of 4 lots and when combined would be 3.6 acres. 3 of the 4 parcels are undeveloped. A vacant single-family home is on 1932 North Rose Park Lane, which has not been occupied for some time and is in disrepair. Public Lands' initial intended approach to this space has changed since their initial application was submitted several years ago. While they initially acquired the land for an indoor recreation center, Public Lands has indicated that they will need to conduct significant public outreach if this zoning map amendment and master plan amendment goes through. So at this time, there's no specific development proposal. So as you can see on this slide, this is the Rose Park Lane Small Area Master Plan's future land use map showing the 4 subject parcels and that they would need to be amended in the master plan to open space. And then here is the zoning map, which shows the R1 7000, which would be, if approved, changed to open space. So as far as considerations and staff analysis, the Rose Park Small Area Plan is an update to the Airport and Jordan River Master Plan. The future land use map in this plan must be amended prior to rezoning the property. Recreation and open space land uses make up the largest portion of the land in the study area, and low-density residential uses were intended to be accessory to agriculture uses in Rose Park Lane. The subject properties are the only residentially zoned properties to be excluded from the West Point Farm subdivision. That's that residential you can see surrounding the site. The properties to the east and south are zoned R17000 and are developed with single-family homes. The property to the north is the Regional Athletic Complex, which is zoned open space. And then you can see I-215 and manufacturing zones to the west. The key point with the zoning comparison is that if it was to be rezoned to open space, there would be a 10-foot landscape buffer required next to the adjacent R17000 residential, and that would include additional landscaping requirements. As far as building height, so the max building height is 35 feet on lots of 4 acres or less, and for each additional foot over 20 feet, it would require an additional foot of that landscape buffer, so foot for foot. And then housing loss mitigation, the applicant is proposing to mitigate the loss of the vacant single-family dwelling by choosing option B of the housing mitigation options, which is pay a fee based on the difference between the housing value and replacement costs. The replacement cost exceeds the market value of the dwelling, so therefore no mitigation fee is required. And that concludes my presentation. As mentioned, the applicant is here as well to answer questions too.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councilor Petro?
I'm not in love with Rose Park Lane and its ability to handle steady streams of traffic. Is there an infrastructure study or any improvements that we'll be making to streets and particularly walkability and bikeability if we're going to be putting something like this in?
So the proposal was reviewed by various divisions in the city, so transportation and public utilities, and it did meet those requirements that it could handle future development associated with the open space zone. That said, I don't know of a specific infrastructure study.
Councilor Arnold.
So I'm just wondering if you can clarify, I think you already said it, but who is the applicant? The city owns the property?
Yep, it's owned by Salt Lake City and it's the public lands.
Okay,
division.
great, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Fowler.
Hello.
Yeah.
What sort of timeline is this on? Like, let's say everything goes as according to plan and it's rezoned into open space. As far as kind of going more forward with this, including with infrastructure, because I know that would be an issue over there. What would be the timeline and kind of what are we looking at as a project on this, if that makes sense?
That does. I think that's a better question for the applicant, so I'll wait for her to come on up.
Hi, Council. My name is Michaela Respicio Evans. I'm a planner with Salt Lake City Public Lands. As far as timeline, as was stated, the initial idea for this property was some kind of complementary facility for the RAC. And after engagement with community members, that we realized that was maybe getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with that idea, and what is really required is robust public engagement. So if this rezone were to be approved, I think we would start looking at first and foremost, a public engagement plan, and then following that would be a feasibility study. There's not currently funding dedicated specifically to this property, but I think this would be a great opportunity for maybe a CIP application, or maybe even thinking about some of the general obligation bond funding for the Reimagine Parks and Open Space. This would be a great contender for funding like that as well.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate recognizing the need for community engagement before we put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
It's done that a few times, so thank you for that.
Executive Cindy. Yeah.
All right, there, okay. Just, I think another way to say the status and the timeline might really be that the city purchased the property because they had the opportunity to do so. And what it would be doing is holding it for a future opportunity. It's probably late in the process to hope that it could get funding from the bond or from anything that's right now being processed by the city. So I would hate for the community to leave with an expectation that something would happen here. It's more of preserving an opportunity is my guess.
Thank you, Cindy. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on to item number 3, zoning map amendment at 858 West, 860 West, Hoit Place. Brian's still at the table. He'll be there for a little while. And Amanda's now at the table. Oh, are you Amanda? You're not Amanda. So, Brian, go ahead. I need a name tag. Sorry. By days in the military, I need name tag. Oh, thank you. I can read those, yes.
Okay, this is a request to amend the zoning code related to building coverage limits. Oh, nope, sorry. Wrong one. That's later. Hoit Place. This proposal is to rezone the properties at 858 and 860 West Hoit Place from R1 7000, which is, again, residential, to SR3, which is special development pattern residential. 2 homes under renovation are on the parcels currently, and the stated intent is to subdivide each parcel and construct an additional home on each one. The petitioner is in the audience and available to address the council if you'd like, and I'll now turn it back to Chrissy.
Okay, I'm covering for Amanda, so you're
Gotcha.
close. So this is a zoning map amendment for the properties located at 858 West, 860 and 860 West Hoit Place from R1 5000 single family residential to SR3 special development pattern residential. Hoit Place is a private mid-block street bordered by 200 North and 300 North and 800 West and 900 West. As stated, the intended rezone is to subdivide the lots to construct 2 additional homes on the parcels. Most parcels on Hoit Place are zoned SR3, and parcels fronting streets bordering the block are a mix of primarily R1 5000 and R1 7000. The SR3 zoning district is a medium density zone typically found within the interior block portions, the interiors of city blocks. The zoning district standards are intended to provide for a safe and comfortable places to live and play, promote sustainable and compatible development patterns, and to preserve the existing character of the neighborhood. So as far as staff analysis when reviewing the proposal, the North Temple Boulevard plan states that infill development should be located primarily in mid-block areas that are currently underdeveloped or underutilized. New development should be incremental, compatible in scale, and development pattern a development pattern similar to the existing structures. Other than the subject properties, there is 1 existing single-family home on Hoit Place. The abutting property to the east has plan development approval for 6 single-family attached units and 4 single-family detached units. For the zoning comparison, if the zoning map amendment is approved, the allowable density would increase. The only residential structures permitted in the R1 5000 zone are single-family detached, and the SR3 zone permits single-family attached and 2-family dwellings. The R1 5000 and SR3 zones have the same maximum setback, building height, the same maximum building height, but the SR3 zone has a reduced front, rear, and interior side yard setbacks. The applicant is proposing replacement housing. No dwelling units will be demolished. If the future plan development petition is approved, there will be a net increase in housing. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Councilman Romano, thank you.
How about now? Can you hear me? So I'm wondering if you could just give a little history on the zoning in this area. Why is it mapped as R1 7000 anyway? I'm just looking at the parcels, and there's several that are like 3,000 square feet, but our map is R1 7000, which clearly is not congruent. Can you just when did that zoning, I'm just going to go ahead and call it a mistake, but when did that happen?
Hi, Kelsey Lindquist. I'm one of the planning managers. I like to stay, mysterious in the background. So the R17 and the R15, it was mapped in 95 when we did the rewrite and the full rezoning of the city. So we remapped those. The SR3 map amendments have been occurring since about 2015. So kind of parcel by parcel for that interior block.
Okay, thanks. I'll just say I'm not opposed to changing this to SR3. I think that's the appropriate zone for this type of a parcel and this type of a mid-block street. That's exactly what SR3 was written for, if I understand it correctly. My question is just more, it seems like the R1 zone the R15 or R17 doesn't make sense at all right there, because none of the parcels are 5,000 or 7,000 square feet. Some of them may be, but so again, another thing that we're trying to deal with from that 1995. Again, I'm just going to say mistake.
Councilor Pui.
Just a quick question. There is that, I know that this decision might have been done before, but if I remember right, that little very skinny line is a little exit or road that they want to construct to connect this, to have an exit in that side, basically on 200 North. Do we know anything about that? Do we remember if they're going to do that? And if so, are they going to demolish the house in there? Because I believe that they own the house in that side too. So that's one of the questions. The second one is, who will own Hoit and who will maintain it? And because right now it's sort of paved, but not quite, and the curb and gutter is disastrous, and right there. And the third thing is, where are the bunnies going to go? Because all the bunnies in the neighborhood live there, and I'm actually kind of sad about that. Obviously, we're going to find a home for them, but that is the question. I'm okay. I love it.
So for the first question on that little skinny access, I think Kelsey's looking that one up because I'm not positive of the answer on that either. Hoit Place is a private street, so it would be maintained by the owners along the street. I believe as these plan developments are being approved and going in, they have HOAs, but I'm not certain how that's been worked out. I apologize.
Councilmember Picho.
Huge fan of density, but this area in particular, constituents are becoming pretty exhausted by parking discussions. What sort of parking will be available in this development?
So it would go by the SR3 zone, which I believe for a single family attached is 2 dwelling units two parking stalls per unit, and that's on site.
If I remember right, they have garages, and some of them, at least in some of the renderings I saw from earlier, they had some garages.
But they're required to have 2 on site.
Yeah, on site.
Councilor Fowler.
Thanks. In the staff report, there was a policy question, and you mentioned it, that the plan from the applicant is not to take away any of the current housing, but to add more units to it. But it did mention maybe a development agreement, and I would be interested in seeing that development agreement so that we can, it's kind of one of the only tools we have to actually ensure that the plans that come through the Planning Commission that are bright and pretty and shiny and that we all like actually get done.
Okay. And just to correct myself, it's actually 1 parking space per dwelling unit. So
it's one more than others.
Yeah. And then as far as the development agreement, I think the applicant could also speak to that in the proposal.
Thank you.
Cindy? Oh, boy, that works now. Okay, one thing you might want to do is just to double check, because this is the private street situation. On new private streets, the city requires that they sign agreements or have attached to their titles things that say that they will be maintaining it. And maybe make this that a condition of this, since it's a mix of new and existing, that I don't know if that's part of what will take place, but you could require that. And then also be sure that there isn't someone that has greater rights over the early part of that private street, because the city has run into some problems lately with trash pickup not being able to get past one property owner down to the others. So maybe some conditions on that, or just some double checking.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I understand what Cindy's saying. So properties abutting private streets, whether they have this written in their title or not, should be maintaining those private streets, right? But if it's written in the title, that just gives more clarity when a person is buying the property that they must do so, or
Yes.
why is that good?
Yes, it gives more clarity, and it allows the city to point to that when the people come back and say, no one told me this. And so a lot of people purchased homes on these private streets without fully understanding that they were responsible for the curb, gutter, and pavement, and those types of things. So
it just makes explicit what is already required.
that's a better way to say it.
I like that.
Further questions, comments?
Councilmember Cui, I will follow up on that secondary access or alley. I can't find a reference in any of the prior staff reports.
I remember this from the neighbors in that area had a lot of questions, so I want to know the facts too, so I can, when they ask me, I know what they're talking about. But it's obviously drawn in there, so it exists in that image as some sort of driveway. And I don't know if that's how they intended it, or is something completely different. But that is where the neighbors had questions about.
Yeah, it could be a private right-of-way, and so I'll look into it and get back to Brian. Okay, thank you.
All right, no further questions. We're going to move on to item number 4, zoning map amendment at approximately 805 South, 800 West. Oh, Kelsey decides to leave now. Brian's still at the table. Oh, and Christy's also leaving. And Brooke is coming up. Brian's all yours.
Thank you. Have me for a few more minutes here.
Gotcha.
So this proposal is to amend the zoning map for property at 805 South, 800 West from M1, which is light manufacturing, to RMU 35, residential mixed use, to potentially construct a multifamily or attached single-family development. And I believe the petitioner is in the audience if the council has questions. And now I'll turn it over to Brooke.
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, Council. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'll just speak really close. As Brian mentioned, this is a zoning map amendment for the subject property at 805 South, 800 West. The proposed amendment is to rezone the property from M1, light manufacturing, to RMU 35, residential mixed use. The property is approximately 4,792 square feet, and the intent of the rezone is to allow the property owner to accommodate a multifamily or an attached single-family development, as residential uses are not permitted under the current M1 zoning of the property. And no site-specific development plan has been submitted at this time. Staff reviewed the following considerations when preparing the recommendation. The first is existing city plan guidance. The subject property is within the West Side Master Plan area. The subject site is along the 800 South and 700 West Industrial Corridor, identified as an important gateway into the West Side neighborhood, principally consisting of industrial uses abutting single-family homes. The plan identifies several goals to increase the community's residential density and mixed use infill on vacant parcels within the 700 West corridor. The change in the zoning would provide an infill development opportunity as supported in the master plan. The second consideration is compatibility with adjacent properties. The subject site is surrounded by a variety of zoning districts and land uses. The surrounding properties on the block are zoned M1, and the primary land uses are predominantly light commercial and light industrial, with the exception of 4 single-family homes located at the southwest corner. The block to the north also contains a mix of zones and uses. The western portion is zoned M1 and primarily consists of single-family residential uses, while the eastern portion was rezoned to RMU in 2020. Welfare Square is located in the M1 zone directly north of the subject site and consists of a variety of commercial and manufacturing uses, while the properties west of the subject site are zoned R1 5000 and RMU 35, primarily consisting of small-scale residential uses, which transition to small-scale multifamily and commercial uses near the community node, an intersection of 800 South and 900 West. In summary, staff found that the proposed rezone is supported by the West Side Master Plan and the development standards of the RMU 35 zoning district provide for an attractive, compatible, moderate density mixed-use development with an emphasis on pedestrian scale activity while maintaining compatibility with the existing development pattern of the area. Both staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of the proposed map amendment. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilmember Pui.
I mean, I know this area very well. I almost actually bought a house very close to this, and this is an empty lot, and I cannot think of any place that is more perfect for density than this. And you know, just very close to there, the RDA owns a lot of property that we are trying to bring to life, and you know, so it makes a lot of sense. This property is very narrow, so it won't have parking. But you know, one of the things that area has, because there is not a lot of residentials on the east side of that area, is a lot of street parking, and you cannot fit a lot of units in there. But I'm sure that they're going to work with you guys on the actual design. Looking forward to this to this plan. I also would like to find out what the range is on the price points. Apparently the developer is telling us that they're going to be for sale, which I'm very excited about. We don't see a lot of development that is for sale these days, a lot for rent. I mean, I hope more developers will put their product out there for sale, but I would like to find out the price ranges that they're looking at and how big are the units. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe the applicant is in attendance, so could speak to that question.
Yep. Sure. Can we have Councilmember Fowler? Wait. Okay.
Is there a plan development on this, or is it just strictly a rezone and master plan amendment?
It's just a rezone.
Hello, my name is Jordan Atkin. We're with the applicant TAG SLC. To clarify one point, we are anticipating providing 4 parking stalls, which would be 1-to-1 parking for 4 single-family attached units that we hope to be able to develop by right, and it is our intention to offer a for-sale product. Currently, we're working on the plans. They're 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom at about 1,500 square feet with a rooftop deck. So hopefully a good addition. We don't have a range on our price point yet, but would likely be around $400,000.
And just on the question of the RMA 35, does that require RMA 35 require parking on-site parking?
My understanding it's 1 stall for every 1 unit.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Fowler.
Hi, thank you for being here. The application originally was for RMF 45, and then the Planning Commission passed forward a positive recommendation for RMF 35. Does that change like the price point at all for you? Or does that change anything within the plans of like, does that talk to me about that, please?
Sure. Yeah, we originally applied for our, we would have preferred to go even higher but we couldn't gather staff support on that, so we went before the Planning Commission with RMU 45, which would have just been an additional story. But as we got more into the working drawings, it didn't seem feasible for that site to have a 4-story building. So we were happy to concede to the 3-story height limit. There's also some restrictions with the overhead power lines on the west, on 8th West. So we're actually only going to be at 29 feet, 10 inches total. So no, didn't change anything.
Okay, I appreciate that. That clarification, because as per Council Member Pui's comment, this is perfect for density, and in my head it was like, why don't we go higher than that? But so thank you for some of that clarification.
Any other questions? I see no other questions. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 5, which is the R2 text amendment building coverage. Brian's still at the table? And now we have Megan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This request is to amend the zoning code citywide related to building coverage limits in the R2, which is single and two-family zoning district. Currently, single-family homes in this district are limited to 40% lot coverage, while two-family homes can go up to 45% lot coverage. Setback and other zoning requirements would not be impacted if the building coverage is increased. And the petitioner is in the audience. I understand he's available to answer questions, but does not have a presentation. And I will now turn it over to Megan.
Hi, Council. My name is Megan Booth. I'm a principal planner in the Planning Division. The applicant was not able to be here. He's a county commissioner, and they're in a meeting right now. So I'll just be presenting the information. So this is a zoning text amendment for the R2 zone regarding building coverage, also sometimes referred to as lot coverage. The specific section is 21A 24110F. So we'll just go ahead and start by defining what building coverage is. Building coverage is defined as the percentage of the lot covered by principal or accessory buildings. The purpose of building coverage limitations is to ensure that there's some open space on the property for landscaping and other outdoor uses. I found this graphic. I thought it makes it pretty easy to understand. So this map is the zoning map for the R2 zone. The R2 zoning district can be found across Salt Lake City, but is primarily located in the Central City and Capitol Hill neighborhoods. You can see that shown in yellow. So what are we looking at as far as the current regulations? Currently, for a single-family dwelling, they are allowed to cover 40% of the lot, but they have a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet. For a two-family dwelling or duplex, they're allowed 45% of the lot, but they have a minimum of 8,000 square feet of the lot area. Sorry, I misspoke there. They have to have 8,000 minimum square feet for the lot. So the project request is to amend a zoning ordinance. We talked about that at the beginning. And so the Planning Division took a look at this and reviewed the proposed text amendment from the applicant and is of the opinion that the proposed text amendment to increase the lot coverage to 45% should be extended to all single-family parcels in the R2 zone, rather than just limiting it to lots less than the current minimum lot size. That was the applicant's proposal. And this would make the maximum single-family lot coverage consistent in the R2 zone. And again, it would also align the regulations for both single-family and two-family dwellings. Again, the applicant was Jim Bradley. I'm excusing him today. And so the key considerations for this project was compliance with master plans policies and Plan Salt Lake, and compliance with the standards for general amendments. And this text amendment does comply. It is in line with the initiatives outlined in Plan Salt Lake relating to neighborhoods growth and housing. and it complies with the standards for general amendments. And the Planning Commission did follow staff's recommendation and forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council. The recommendation proposed language is found in the staff report.
Council, questions?
I just want to say, Mr. Chair, that I want to say that this makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate the administration going through this and updating the requirements here. But it makes a lot of sense because this 40 to 45 can make a huge difference, especially in some of these old zones that we have, and the city and parts need to densify. And in some of these cases, some people wanted to build an accessory dwelling unit under the house, and they couldn't because they needed to add a staircase to go to the house, to the basement, and they couldn't because that broke the rule of allowable build out. And even by 1%, you're basically not allowed. So I appreciate this update, and some of these quirky parts of town where we have all houses and all zones and all these property lines that are very strange. So I think this makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilman Romano.
I'm just, Councilmember Pui, to your question, I'm wondering how this helps ADUs, because this is the amendment where, because there's already a 45-foot lot coverage allowed for when there's more than one dwelling, but since it is an ADU considered not a second dwelling, which is why that would help with ADUs. Actually, it seems like that what we're changing makes it just easier to make a single-family house bigger, not an additional dwelling unit. But am I understanding it incorrectly?
Yeah, so I think you're correct in your assessment of the ADU ordinance. In terms of lot size, I think initially when this proposal came forward, it was related to undersized lots, and then it was actually expanded to just include any lot in the R2 zone. Does that answer your question?
Possibly, but I guess the question would be is if it seems to me like if I was in an R2 zone and I was wanting to build two dwellings on my lot, I wouldn't have to use the ADU ordinance, and then I would already get the 45% lot coverage that is allowed currently. So this change doesn't, the way I'm understanding this change is actually just helping single-family houses to get bigger, not helping more properties build second dwellings. Is that accurate, or?
So the impact was mostly looked at in regards to single-family dwellings. Yeah, there were about 1,300 properties that would be impacted. I'm also sitting on the team for the ADU ordinance, and I can look at that as well in more detail, since I don't have a clear answer right now without analyzing it more.
I think the one thing about it'd be if it was an attached ADU and you needed the one example of expanded the single-family house, right? It's one house, and the attached ADU required a additional land to make it
I think I'm getting
buildable.
too far in the weeds, and I'll just take a step back. I'm not opposed to this, but I don't think it's helping with density, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Oh, I'm just going to switch places.
So the 40, this change would allow essentially more lot coverage. So right now, an ADU isn't allowed for a duplex or other types of uses, but if somebody had a single-family home and they were currently at 39% lot coverage, they would not be able to add an ADU because they'd exceed the lot coverage, and there's not an allowance to do that with an ADU. And so what this change would do is that it does increase that. It gives them 5% more lot coverage, which is actually what the R2 zone required prior to 1995. So it's going back to more of the historical standard in our code for that. So the answer is yes, it does make it easier to build an ADU. No, it doesn't make it easier to build a duplex because you still need the minimum lot area to have a duplex.
Oh, that's what I missed. So their duplexes have a minimum lot size, and so you couldn't build an ADU or a duplex on certain properties where some you could build a single family with an ADU. Okay, correct. Thank you. It does help. Glad we clarified that.
I'm glad. I'm with Chris. Any other?
I told you I got into the weeds, and I'm sorry, but Nick actually.
An architect and a planner getting together? Yes.
There's definitely a joke in there
Somewhere. All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Megan. Thanks for the backup, Nick. All right. Are we still? Oh, guess what? Brian's still here. We're moving on to item number 6, rezoning master plan amendment at 2435 South, 500 East. We have Brian and Caitlin, or just Brian?
No, Amy's here.
Caitlin, thank you.
This is Amy.
This is, yeah, you're not, see, I'm sorry, where's that name
Throwing
tag
you
again?
lots of curveballs.
Yes, you are.
Sorry about that. Well, after this one, you'll be finished with me. This
Never.
proposal is to amend the zoning map for property at 2435 South, 500 East from its current R1 7000 or residential zoning to RMF 35 moderate density multifamily residential. The Sugar House Master Plan future land use map would also be amended under the proposal. The petitioner's stated purpose for the request is to construct for sale townhomes on the property, which is slightly less than 1 acre in size. However, no formal site plan has been submitted to this point. And now I will turn it over to Amy.
Thank you. I'm Amy Thompson. I took over this item from Caitlin, who has moved on to a different position in another municipality. Again, as Brian said, this is a rezone request from TAG Salt Lake City, represented by Jordan Atkin, to amend the master plan and zoning map at approximately 2435 South, 5th East. The master plan currently identifies the property as low density residential, and the proposal is for medium density residential. Again, the zoning map amendment is from R1 7000 to RMF 35. The Planning Commission did forward a positive recommendation to City Council. They reviewed the application on January 26, 2022. The parcel is very deep and adjacent to I-80 with frontage on 500 East as well as Warnock Avenue, as you can see from the map on the right-hand side. The property view, the existing view of the property from 500 East facing east is shown on that top photo. There's currently a vacant boarded up single-family dwelling on the property. And then the bottom photo is the view from Warnock Avenue. It's essentially kind of the rear of the property facing west. This chart outlines the new permitted and conditional uses with the proposed rezone of the property. Generally, new permitted and conditional uses are residential in nature. New permitted uses include small assisted living facility, single-family attached, two-family and multifamily dwellings. Uses going from conditional to permitted include accessory dwelling units, community garden, assisted living facility, the limited capacity, and a small congregate care facility. This chart highlights the regulation changes between the existing R17 and the proposed RMF 35. The RMF 35 zone does allow heights up to 35 feet as opposed to the existing R17, which allows 28 for pitched roof or 20 feet for a flat roof. The front and rear yard setbacks are fairly similar. The interior side yard setbacks would change from 6 feet on one side, 10 feet on the other, to none required, but if one is required, it cannot be less than 4 feet. And then the proposed RMF 35 zone does allow for 20% more building coverage than the existing R17. This slide outlines the city plan policies and goals that staff and the planning took into consideration with their recommendation. The Sugar House Master Plan talks about location criteria for medium density housing, which includes proximity to arterial or collector streets and existing proposed parks and open space. Growing Salt Lake encourages increasing medium density housing types and options, including options that allow for aging in place where appropriate and supported by the master plan. And Plan Salt Lake supports promoting infill and redevelopment of underutilized lots. And finally, just a quick outline of the public process so far. Again, Planning Commission did forward a positive recommendation to City Council. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Jordan Atkin from TAG Salt Lake doesn't have a formal presentation, but he's also available for questions.
Council questions? Just a question on, would this connect to Warnock, or would it just have a driveway going into the townhomes?
So I'm not sure how the site will have to be developed in accordance with the zone if it's approved at RMF 35. The applicant did provide a conceptual site plan. However, I should note that on that site plan there's 18 single-family attached townhomes shown, and the site actually only has enough lot area for 14. So I'm not exactly sure how he intends to develop the site, but it would need to be developed in accordance with RMF 35. It is a double frontage lot, so where they have that access either off 500 East or Warnock.
Okay, and then just for definition, that a townhome that would have HOA requirements for that, is that what the townhome is, or is that just all he can develop that, whether it's townhome, attached homes, or anything else for an RMF 35 or a apartment building type structure within the building size?
Yeah, if it's single family attached, I think it would depend on how he's dividing up the site and who's responsible for the common area, but he could potentially answer those questions. Those would probably be better suited for him.
Sure. I'll take the, yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So who owns Warnock Avenue? Is this
I believe it's a city street, but I can double check on that while the applicant
okay,
comes
and
up.
I will be interested in, since it's a very small street, and it doesn't seem, just judging by the photo, that it's very well maintained. And I will be interested to see if there is any interest in also seeing if there is an agreement between the city and the developer to maintain that street, since they're going to potentially use it quite a bit if they're going to develop that lot from both ends. So just a thought. Then the developer will take some share of the amazing profit margins and help the city with this beautiful short street, maintaining that. So it's just a thought.
Do you want to have the developer answer your question? Councilmember Puig, did you have a question with that for the developer? Oh, okay. Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you. And Amy, you may have said this, but thank you again for being here. Were these also going to be looked at as for sale product?
My name is Jordan Atkin. I'm with the applicant, TAG SLC. I will do my best on the questions. This is anticipated to be a for sale project as well. We're big believers in for sale as well as missing middle housing types throughout the city. We're also acutely aware of the city's ongoing efforts to create mid-block connections through the city, so we did anticipate having an open, it'll be a private street, but open driveway and sidewalk connecting 5th East to Warnock. I would say we would be less than enthusiastic to maintain a city street as part of that, but
we can talk.
We'll abide by the whatever regulations we have. And we did work with the Sugar House Land Use Committee in the overall design, and it's anticipated the road would be along the north, giving a little bit more relief from the highway, and then the units would be on the south.
Perfect. Thank you, Jordan.
Any other questions for the Councilmember?
For the planning department, actually, why is you said 14 units is the maximum, and is that because of the 3,000 square feet per lot for single family attached?
Yes.
I guess my question is, couldn't they just say it's a multifamily dwelling, and then they could have as many units as they, because it's 26,000 square feet for multifamily dwelling units of 12 or more? I just think there's a weird thing in our code that they actually could do 18 units or more. They just can't
subdivide the lots like a townhouse. Is that accurate? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so the reason why I mentioned that the 14 was only allowed is because at this time that's what the applicant has indicated that he intends to do is single family attached. You're right about the requirement for multifamily. The project would need to meet the definition of multifamily in the zoning ordinance, so it would just depend on how he divided up the site.
Okay, thanks.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to item number 7, what you all been waiting for, a tentative break. And we'll be back at 14:15. I mean 16:15 or 4:15. 4:15.
All right, Superman
Going.
going backwards.
Okay, we can recycle this.
check. Check. Number 6. Check. Number 5. Check. Number 4. Check. Number 3. Check. Number 2. Check. Number 1.
continue with item number 8, the Urban Forest Action Plan update. With Kelsey, Tony, I saw Nick, and I saw Blake at one time also. Come on up. There was a computer there. I'm not sure where that computer went. Oh, there's.
I'm just going to test my microphone while we're sitting here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's still not working. Is it working?
Yeah, it is.
Kind of. I think it's still not working.
I could use some tech help. Thank you.
Just do the voice activation. Support.
The computer's just decided to be a little complicated. This is you? Thank you. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Screen. Thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon again. My name is Kelsey Lindquist. I'm one of the planning managers. I'm taking over this project from Laura Bandara. She was the prior urban designer for planning, and she's since taken another position in another municipality. Just for a brief overview, this effort has had rigorous public engagement. Planning, with the assistance from Urban Forestry, has held stakeholder meetings, a broad public survey, as well as community council presentations to gain input on the plan. Staff transmitted the draft Urban Forest Action Plan in April of 2020. After this briefing, staff will hold a public hearing with the Planning Commission to gain a recommendation, and we hope to have this adopted in 2022 or early 2023. The purpose of this plan was to collaboratively develop the steps needed to realize the vision set out in Plan Salt Lake. Urban forests are vital contributors to thriving cities. When properly planned, planted, and protected, urban forests promote both public and environmental health and can mitigate some effects of climate change. Our urban forest is an asset that Salt Lake City residents treasure. In the city's 25-year general plan, Plan Salt Lake, which was adopted in 2015, residents named the urban forest as one of our greatest assets and called for its continued preservation and expansion. With this in mind, planning engaged in creating this action plan. The action plans take a holistic view of an issue to address interconnected challenges. They develop priorities, find solutions, and build a long-term plan of action. Policymakers, planners, and community members create action plans to unite a broad range of community stakeholders. That includes nonprofits, private sector, institutions, and governmental agencies around a shared cause. The Urban Forest Action Plan project team included planning as the lead, and we collaborated heavily with urban forestry, sustainability, and public utilities. This plan includes 4 main principles. The first is a public good. When we say public good, planning is referring to comparable assets such as streetlights, roadways, sidewalks, mainly city networks and amenities that are used by all. The urban forest provides public infrastructure. Together, city trees form an urban forest, and it's considered a living infrastructure. Return on investment. The plan identifies a strategy to be able to make the most of the benefits of the urban forest and to value it for the full range of benefits it provides. And then distribution. As a public good, we want the urban forest, especially the canopy, to be spread equitably across the city.
which will require partnerships across communities, agencies, institutions, and public and private sectors. So what are the benefits of the urban forest? They are vast and include general mitigation of adverse environmental impacts and conditions. For example, the graph that you can see on the screen you'll see a central grouping of yellows and oranges as well as some reds during the summer months. These colors display our poor air quality during the summer. With the right trees, ozone pollution can be addressed, which is the biggest contributor to poor air quality during the summer. Also reduces the impact of urban heat island and reduces peak summer temperatures. Healthy urban forests can also reduce energy consumption. Additionally, they can help with and promote active transportation and safety, and they also tend to improve physical and mental health. Research also shows economic benefits of trees. People will generally stay longer and spend more money in retail districts with trees. Incorporating trees into design of neighborhoods provides more and better opportunities for neighbors to socialize and build community. Studies demonstrate an association between the number of trees and community cohesion in urban neighborhoods. The action plan analysis that informed the draft include the following. So you'll see a tree canopy by plan area on your slide. City Creek Master Plan area has the highest level of canopy, but you'll see that is gray on the screen. We left this out of the map because there are very few residential areas there, and we want to make an apples-to-apples comparison with this data. City Creek's high canopy and the airport, as well as the northwest quadrant low canopy, are expected, given the conditions of ecology as well as the land use in those areas. All of the other master plan areas, however, demonstrate a phenomenon we see in cities throughout the U.S. The avenues, East Bench, and Sugar House have approximately twice the canopy as the Northwest and West Side master plan areas. In cities throughout the United States, including Salt Lake City, persistent socioeconomic divides in investment and development patterns correlate to the historic practice of redlining. This policy characterized neighborhood quality to determine where mortgages that the Federal Homeowners Loan Corporation would be approved or denied. Salt Lake City recognizes the lasting impact of redlining, which was a federal policy that was implemented nearly a century ago. In practice, cities use this policy to discriminate and reinforce segregation in neighborhood development patterns by designing areas for loans based on race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic class. Areas considered to be, quote, the wrong side of the tracks were labeled as hazardous and in red on maps, hence the term redlining. Just as the pattern of racial, ethnic, and economic inequalities persists in formerly redlined neighborhoods, and more access to the range of benefits the urban forest provides, in Salt Lake City, the A and B areas have between 2 and 6 times the tree canopy of those once redlined. While this is disturbing, Salt Lake City is not alone. Multiple recent studies in cities throughout the United States demonstrate the phenomenon we see here, and many are working to address it. This map demonstrates the difference in land surface temperatures at a single point in time in the Salt Lake City's master plan areas. Land surface temperature is measured by satellite and indicates how hot a given surface feels to touch. You'll see that downtown has similar temperatures to the northwest quadrant. Capitol Hill master plan area also has higher temperatures, but that is due to the west-facing slopes and the compact industrial uses. East Bench has west-facing slopes, but surface temperatures generally tend to be cooler on the East Bench. So redlining policies of the past also have implications for distribution of urban heat island effect. While this effect is due to a complex interaction of variables, looking at surface temperatures gives us a good idea of which areas of the city need shade and cooling. Again, the correlation between the red line districts and surface temperatures is striking. A census tract allows us to focus on areas where streets, parks, and golf courses might benefit from more trees as well. This shows a reverse pattern and illustration between surface temps and the existing tree canopy. Studies have shown a relationship between lower rates of childhood asthma in neighborhoods with more trees. Areas with approximately 900 trees per square mile had lower childhood asthma rates than areas with fewer trees. Again, this map highlights the primary location of the younger population in the city, so population under 18 years. And then the area of the city with larger populations without health insurance. More recently, municipalities have begun to reckon with biases in the way cities are planned and built, and to consider how these inequalities extend to the urban forest. Multiple recent studies demonstrate that areas considered prime real estate in the 30s have 2 to 4 more times tree canopy than formerly redlined areas. Nearly a century later, the disparity matters because it correlates to continued adverse public health outcomes, reduced livability, and decreased resilience in the face of climate change. With all of that said, the strategies identified and presented in the draft action plan provide guidance for Salt Lake City to align its resources and actions to the built environment with its goals for sustainability and equity, and describes concrete steps to implement equitable practices for a resilient future. And in closing, going forward, we will be scheduling this for a Planning Commission hearing and recommendation, and then hopefully for adoption in 2022, early 2023. And Tony and Nick are at the table. We can take any questions at this time.
Council.
So I know. Testing. So I know you said historically the Northwest Quadrant hasn't been included, and I know we do have the Northwest Quadrant vegetation overlay. Is there any plans to extend this, given what we know to be coming in that area, efforts to ameliorate heat islands there, particularly if that's what it's like when it's natural land, what's it going to be when it's pavement and 18-wheelers? Will this extend to that, and how will it interact with the vegetation overlay? Are we preempting it?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So part of the role of this urban forest plan is to guide future changes to our landscape regulations. And that may include looking at those, knowing now what we do know versus what we knew even just a few years ago. And so, for example, in the Northwest Quadrant, our landscaping regulations are intended to have more of a natural type of vegetation, mainly due to the soil type and things like that. But it's the only area in the city where right now we don't require trees. That doesn't mean that people can't plant them. It just means they're not required. And so that may be something that we look at. And I know, something that Tony's been saying for, how long have you worked here?
14. Since 14.
That's something that we consider out there. So the idea is that this would guide that look, and so hopefully that's something that we can get to as a relatively quick follow-up to this.
Yeah, the other side of that coin feels like watering the trees is always an issue,
Yep.
and as we've been meeting with Colmena and other developers out there, that's guaranteed people who will water and keep our urban forests alive in partnership with us. So I'd really, really love for us to be aggressive even out there, so that these trees have time to mature before the worst of the effects that we're getting here.
Councilman Fowler.
Thank you. I appreciate this plan and the strategic directions it's going. Particularly, I do think that adding something like the urban forest as a public infrastructure is important to actually keep it maintaining its importance, right? I guess my question is, within these goals, I don't see like sort of the implementation parts of it. How are we going to fund this? Will this be a line item in a budget? Is this going to be, are we including maintenance of all of this? What does that step look like, and the funding that no doubt will be coming to the council after this is put into place?
Yeah, as far as the funding aspect, we don't have a number identified. Typically, when street trees are required, the developer pays for it, and then they pay for the maintenance as well. And so requiring a broader street tree canopy would put the responsibility on that property owner, like the park strips, essentially. So we're looking at the downtown area and hopefully integrating some of a broader canopy requirement for the downtown master plan area. For neighborhoods, that has been part of this discussion of the affordability of watering the trees. And going forward, I think we'd have future conversations with public utilities on options.
Okay.
Tony,
you know, yeah, actually, just to add to that, I really see this plan as somewhat of a catalyst for investment, not necessarily financially in our urban forest, but as a priority with the way the city grows. So this document coming out of planning is a great thing as far as the urban forestry division is concerned, because the planning division and engineering and public utilities, these are places where that prioritize how the city grows. And for urban forests to be considered infrastructure and worthy of consideration during every phase of growth for the city, in and of itself is a huge advantage. As Kelsey was saying, a lot of this, the things that are recommended in the Urban Forest Action Plan don't necessarily have price tags associated with them. Their allocation, or they're allocating responsibility for making sure that we are continuing to plant and care for our forest. And that's not just here at the city, it's our developers, it's our residents. And so these costs will be spread out quite a bit. And what this plan, I think, if it's successful, what it will do is will encourage a number of city divisions and departments that currently have their own set of priorities to add the urban forest and planning for the urban forest into that, and that can have huge impacts.
Yes, and I completely agree with you, and that's why I do think having it as a public infrastructure is important as the conversations continue, and as was pointed out by Kelsey, as far as redlining and prior zoning that was incredibly discriminatory, and as we're looking at equity and how each of our departments and everything we're doing kind of through this equitable lens and through this attainable and achievable lens, right, is, well, this may be something that, like we say, when a developer comes, you have to increase your canopy, right? That's just now become a requirement in all zones or something, right? Whatever that looks like. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that price can then go directly to the buyer or the homeowner, which then raises these costs. And as we're talking about attainable and affordable housing, we're potentially creating more barriers for attainable and affordable housing, which is the exact opposite of what any of us want to do, right? And so I think it's just, and I know all of you, or at least have been working here for a little bit of time, to know that that is a priority for planning as well, is always making sure to look at that lens of affordable and attainable housing. But I think continuing to be cognizant and having those conversations of what that actually looks like, because as we've mentioned during the budget, somebody may say, oh, it'd only add a couple of dollars to somebody's rent. Well, a couple of dollars to somebody's rent may mean a lot to that somebody, right? And so I appreciate this, and I think the public infrastructure keeps it at the forefront of being an importance, right? But what cost does that actually have to the consumer? And are we creating barriers in different ways? And I think in all of our zoning and everything we're looking at, and I follow Nick Norris on Facebook, and so I know that one of his priorities, and having worked here for a minute, is really looking at our zoning as a whole and in a full, holistic, total way. And this is just a piece of that as we continue to look at that zoning.
Yeah. I appreciate this a lot too. As everybody knows, I've been talking about trees for a little while, and I want to see more trees in my district on the west side for sure. And it's one of my goals to make sure that those trees do survive. They're just not only planted, but they make it through the first couple of years, which is very likely to survive right after that. On the goals, on the first part of the goals on the chart that you showed us, it says the urban forest is a public infrastructure, and you want to protect the trees and city-owned lands. I'm probably, even right here, right outside, there is a couple of dead trees. I think that we have not only city facilities that could accommodate more trees, but we also have some county facilities, some state facilities, and probably even some federal, facilities in all our districts, especially in my district. There's a lot of industrial and a lot of, there's a lot of that happening in my district. And I wonder if there is a way to coordinate, because most of those agencies are watering their park strips. They are actually putting a lot of water on those. So to make sure that we go there heavy on trees, it is the likeliness that those survive is very high, since we are already watering it. They are already watering it. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do this plan, and we should. But I think that is a big prong right there. It's already happening. The water is already there. Let's coordinate with the county and the city. I don't know if we have to ask for permission at all, because it is parking strip, and potentially we are already planting it on people's house parking strip without necessarily their permission. So I wonder if we can just go ahead and go nuts on those trees.
I'm not sure that we could go nuts on those trees, but that's really good input in how we're going to address the ordinance changes for landscaping requirements. We could potentially require additional street trees for governmental agencies, institutions, things like that.
That's a low-hanging fruit. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other comments, questions? Council? Wonderful presentation. You got a lot of lovers in trees, and so keep planting them in and go crazy.
Yeah, and I just in closing, I want to add that this is a follow-up to the resolution that the council adopted a couple years ago about the process that master plans go through. And so this is that step right before the planning commission process. So we hope in the next month to get to the planning commission.
2 months.
2 months. Agendas are huge. So, but, and then hopefully get back to you as soon as we can. And we also are working on a transmittal that's working its way through the admin side of things right now that discusses our landscape ordinance as a whole, that was put together in conjunction with planning and public utilities. So you'll be getting that fairly soon as well. And this plan kind of sets some of those policies that we hope to be able to implement through that. So just wanted to get it on everyone's radar.
Councilman Pui.
Watching your planning commission meetings, and I watched them in 2x, so it go faster. But my advice is to buy second dinner for the planning commission. Just throwing that out there. They are working through a lot. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelsey, Tony, Nick. Appreciate that. Council, we're moving on to item number 9, capital improvement program project follow-up. And we have Ben will be helping us through this discussion. Tammy's here. I saw her somewhere. And Callie and John is also here somewhere. So this is our CIP discussion. And Ben, I'll just give it to you for a few seconds to kick us off.
In case anyone, council member or audience member, needs a physical copy of the funding log, we have extra copies on the table to the right. We also have copies of the summary sheet, which also lists the 2 bonds that are being considered by the council, the sales tax bond and the GO bond.
Yeah, and today we'll be just discussing the CIP.
Yes. The funding log has 93 individual items that are requesting funding. You'll notice there's a little over $27 million available across 5 different funding sources. The general fund dollars are the most flexible. They can go to any project listed out of those 93. The other funding sources are usually more restrictive, such as parks impact fees that need to go to parks, or the funding our future for streets, which needs to go to streets transportation projects. The council did add $152,660 in the annual budget. Those funds are from CIP projects that were already completed. So those $152,000 general fund dollars, they can go to any project on the funding log. I'm going to put the funding log up on the screen, and I'll try to follow along with the council's discussion about which items are being looked at.
Okay, so I'll open up to the floor. Councilman Mono has his hand on the mic first.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Oh, my microphone's working, yay. Ben, could you clarify for us, we added also some money for traffic calming in the most recent budget, but like, is that money also available for projects on this log, or when will the projects with that money that we added in be decided on, and how, and is today the time we talk about that, or does my question make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay. So in the annual budget, the council added $2 million of one-time funding. This was from the holding account in CIP for the livable streets. This is the traffic calming program. So there is a plan that the Transportation Division put together to prioritize neighborhoods. They call them zones in the plan. There's, I think, 113 different zones around the city. And the prioritization process would just follow what's in that plan. But if the council wanted to provide policy guidance to say, we would like to consider additional factors such as geographic equity, which is something the council did in the streets reconstruction bond, I think that would be a conversation you could have today. And I saw John Larson in the audience who could also join in that discussion. The $2 million is not listed on the funding log since it was already approved for that use in the annual budget.
So the 24 projects that are listed in the log for proposed to be funded, none of that money is the $2 million that we allocated. So the $2 million is above and beyond that. And some of these constituent requests or other items on here could fall into that category. But some of the items that are on that list, the prioritization list you mentioned, are not on this.
Yep. The $2 million is not on the log. So there are some traffic calming projects on the log that could be funded with that $2 million. If they're ranked high enough, or if the council wanted to provide policy guidance to prioritize how that $2 million should be used.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fowler.
Most of those traffic calming things were not funded,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Cindy?
Wondering if it might be a little bit premature today to have the conversation about that $2 million combined with this, because council members may not have had a chance to prepare for that. I could be wrong, but just.
Councilmember Fowler?
Have we seen the prioritization of that plan yet? I mean, I may have seen it and forgotten about it, but John, I'm looking at you. I mean, because I think Cindy's right. I don't know that I would be ready to have a policy discussion today on that prioritization plan or the traffic calming plan, because we've been focused on just the projects here, but that I do think it should be on a future agenda where we can talk about those policy issues.
We
so I
could,
guess I'm looking to the chair to say, can you put that on a future agenda, please?
Sure, because Ben did send out this $2 million and the where the projects would be broken out across the city, but it got probably lost in as we're discussing CIP, because this is not quite, it's not CIP, it is traffic calming, but it's not part of the CIP list. So we could put that on for a different discussion, because it is related, but not connected.
Well, and it's already allocated, so we don't need to worry about it as to today. Like, we've already decided, voted, done.
Right.
$2 million's out there. We can talk about it later, because there's all this other stuff that we need to talk about.
I think right now the administration can just use that $2 million without any policy direction from us. And I think the question is, do we want to provide policy direction, and is it too late to do so because we've already allocated that in the budget? Does that make sense? Because right now, am I wrong in assuming that right now the administration could commit all of that $2 million to whatever traffic calming projects they see fit, and they may not be ones that match with council member priorities? Or
And that goes back, I think, to the discussion we have to have with transportation. Let's make sure that we give them some policy direction. And I think right now what we're trying to say is that, hey, the policy direction is to hold on. I think John's got a lot of things on his plate already, so he might be able to hold on these projects, because I think we do want to have some further discussion on it. And I don't think it's going to be a long discussion.
Sure. Just to clarify, okay, so item number 22 on this funding log is also $3 million for complete streets. That is separate from the $2 million we added, so there's actually $5 million for related similar things without specific projects attached. Is that?
Yes, and there's
Plus,
also
there's
also $3 million for street reconstruction. So there's three pots: street reconstruction, complete streets, and the livable streets program, which is traffic calming. There is some overlap between the three, such as traffic calming could be a bulb out for a pedestrian, but so could complete streets. So 3 separate uses, 3 separate pots, all for streets in the public right of way, and there is a little overlap between the 3.
Well, and maybe we're coming back to this, but I think that I like the way that the Transportation Division has created a list of like where the highest needs are, and I think that's a good policy, a good way to allocate those funds. But I think there could be other ways as well, such as like where constituents, where we hear the most constituent need or requests for those things, and so maybe we have to decide like how much of it goes to purely a data-driven approach and how much of it goes to more of a community input approach. And I think some should go to both, but maybe that's our discussion for later.
And we can, in the CIP side of the house, we are going to be discussing item number 22, the $2 million for the livable streets. The $2 million that is not on this list here, and I think we can have a future discussion on that item, because we have some information from Ben. We can digest that, and we can re-forward that up to the council on the $2 million. Staying with that subject on the $3 million, on the
complete streets.
The complete streets. I'm just going to throw out the idea that item number 78, which is the sunny side, which is really basically the same thing as the complete streets. It fits the same need, and I would. Can I finish? All right, thanks. I would like to use that funding for the sunny side, which is basically medians, crosswalks, everything that's under that complete streets, whether that's taking money from the 22 into the Sunnyside project or moving the Sunnyside project underneath the defined complete streets. I'm easy on either way. but that would be a request from my end. The Sunnyside area's been in need of that. There's crosswalks. There's 2 schools, an autistic schools. There's East High schools. There's football fields on one side, the other athletic fields on the other side of the street. There's parking lots on both sides of the streets. And if you ever go there during school hours, there's high school kids just running back and forth across these streets while the street goes downhill and it's got to turn. So there's a lot of opportunities for some chicken with the pedestrians and cars, and it's not going to work out well if it. And I think crosswalks and some street calming would be a perfect place for it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
what number is the Sunnyside project?
78.
Thank you.
And it's basically described in the complete streets. Its makeup is the same as the complete streets, the definition and the description.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question about the project. Is this okay? I'm just trying to get in front of this. Okay, so definitely think the street is worthwhile. The project is worthwhile. But do we know why? I'm just the price relative to last year when we funded a proposal for my constituents at $600,000, and that was talking about multiple different streets. Is this this seems high for that? Do you know? Can you just give me some more information about it? Since you don't know.
It's you're looking at 3. One part of the project was 3 crosswalks with some islands, also meeting islands. I walked the street a few times before, and I'm not sure if they actually need 3, but I'm looking at the engineers and the safeties on that side of the house, and I have John Larson here who could probably answer some more questions here on the pricing of that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You're good.
I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so the traffic calming, like neighborhood traffic calming, generally is going to be a lot cheaper per location or per implementation. When you're talking about things like, raised speed bumps or speed lumps, when you're not, those are a lot cheaper than things where you're like raised crosswalks or bulb outs or landscape medians where you're moving the curb or changing the flow of stormwater and things like that. Then you start getting into more civil design and heavier construction than kind of digging up a chunk of the street and putting in a traffic calming device. And so that's why the North Capitol Hill project is or West Capitol Hill, the Capitol Hill traffic calming is, we can cover more ground because it's more residential focused.
Because they're not making changes to curbs and gutters.
Right.
It's mostly just speed
Yeah.
bumps.
Yeah.
Because there were some raised crosswalks proposed in that, and that's why I'm wondering why, or if this means that if it costs $500,000 to do 3 raised crosswalks, that's going to be.
Yeah, I don't think a raised crosswalk is probably 30,000.
Okay.
And like a speed bump would be 5,000 or 6,000.
Okay. Okay. Speed hump.
But yeah,
because we don't do speed bumps.
Well,
right.
Speed. I don't know what we call them anymore. Speed. We're moving towards speed lumps, which just for fun, which have some grooves cut out in them so the fire department can go over them more
that's
quickly.
Okay. I was going to ask, what is the difference between a lump and a hump?
Yeah.
In terms of speed.
And that's the.
In terms of, if you could limit your answer to
difference.
speed only.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that answers it. Thank you.
And this also
Yeah,
had, this project also had some islands in the middle there because of some of the parking lots being on both sides and the left-hand turns and the right-hand turns going out in and out. So there was some additional besides just a a raised crosswalk because of the traffic flow and the pedestrians and the bus lanes in there. So.
So to be clear, Councilmember Dugan, your proposal is not to add funding to the CIP log or change the categories, but just to specify that some of that 3 million should go to the Sunnyside project.
Yes, yes. So it'd be more
change, it just adds more specificity.
Right. It wouldn't change. It would just add Project 78 under Project 22. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
I'm back. You are correct. It's shifting funding from number 22, Complete Streets, to number 78. Another way to think of it is 22 is general funding for Complete Streets, and this is a specific Complete Streets project.
That makes sense. Okay.
Can I ask a question about the 30 million for the 3 million for the Complete Streets? And I'm looking at Lisa because she already was ready to jump out of her chair to get to it. But in the proposed 3 million for Complete Streets, are there already projects identified for that $3 million? And if so, how many projects would that 3 million get to?
Thank you for the question. I think I'm supposed to speak directly. Is it happening now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The 3 million, just to provide some context, the $3 million in Complete Streets funding as recommended is because when the taxpayers voted on the the streets reconstruction bond, we didn't specifically carve out any funding related to the Complete Streets ordinance. And so we inadvertently created a mandate that we had no funding to meet. So this $3 million is intended for when we do a complete reconstruction of a street that is paid for from the bond that the taxpayers voted on. Then this $3 million is to help with the mandated Complete Streets ordinance that we have required transportation to abide by. So providing Complete Streets elements on completely reconstructed roads.
And so when you say that we didn't carve out any money to comply with the Complete Streets ordinance, I'm assuming that this means because the general obligation bond that was voted on for the streets reconstruction, 4 years ago now, almost 5, the specific language within that we gave to voters didn't mention anything about Complete Streets, and is that accurate? I'm kind of looking at Katie too.
I don't remember the specific language, council member, but there has been some ambiguity about that, like what we can use the bond funding for specifically. And so, for example, if we use the Complete Streets methodology and we add a bike lane that is not connected to the street but is part of the Complete Streets reconstruction, is that eligible for bond funding that the voters approve for a complete reconstruction of a street? So we have added this funding as a way to accommodate that mandate that transportation is under.
But have we, I mean, not that Katie's office doesn't have enough to do, but have we gotten some language out of that vagueness of saying whether or not, I mean, to me, if I say, if I'm reading something that says, hey, voter, we want you to vote on a complete reconstruction, I mean, that to me would seem to include the gutters and the Complete Streets and the ordinance that we've already done, right? That's out there. So and I'm asking this question because if we need to do something so that the reconstruction of the street is actually complete, which I think is what voters would hope for, then fine, right? Then this $3 million maybe should stay there. But it seems to me that if we asked voters, we need $80 million to reconstruct streets completely, that would actually include, and we would be able to spend that money on the complete street. That's the word I hope we used.
Right, and I think that the word complete is the piece that we grapple with. It's more artful, right? Because we say, what is a complete street? There are certain elements in the complete streets, menu of options that we don't include in every reconstruction. So have we met the complete streets mandate if we add one of those elements, or what does complete mean, right? And so this is where the ambiguity comes in. And I will also add that because of time, because of market conditions, because of everything the pressure that we're under, the bond money that we approved years ago doesn't go as far as it would have back then. And so to add additional elements to a street, which might be considered by some to be curb to curb, nothing else, right? To add elements to that is more expensive now than it's ever been.
Sure. I mean, welcome to 2022. Right. Everything is more expensive. I still am just grappling with this whole, why can't we spend bond money on creating a complete street? But I maybe will just figure that out offline while I grapple.
Isn't that exactly what we did on 300 West? Is we used the bond funding to do a road reconstruction, and it included an above curb bike lane. So we're already doing it, right?
Okay, is okay,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I weigh in? Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously this is loaded with nuance. So Third West didn't even have functional sidewalks, right? And so I think that was really easy to justify that everything needed to be replaced. And as long as you're putting it back, put it back right. Where it's gotten tricky is like 9th South, where the curb and gutter was in good shape. And so it's hard to use bond money that was justified to the voters as being used for replacing poor assets. Now, luckily for 9th South, we got a county grant to pay for the 9-line trail portion of that project. And then council allocated money for capital port elements of frequent transit network bus routes. And so for 9th South, we were actually able to infuse other funding sources to do really what's a kind of a complete street plus project is what I would call it. Some of the projects have been a little more basic as far as, we haven't really needed, or there hasn't been like, they haven't been quite as, I don't know, I'm looking for the right language, but we put it back pretty similar to how they were, and it maybe just striped bike lanes. And then some projects are somewhere in between, like 9th East was a bond project that had, we need to replace the curb and gutter on the east side, and we put back protected behind the curb bike lane. But then on the west side of the street southbound is a striped buffered bike lane. And so we've tried to really stretch every penny that we've been able to get to make every project as good as possible. And have actually, over the last couple of years, have actually asked for and received. We've asked for, we call it, I think, complete street supplement monies, and we've been using that as well for these projects. And maybe it's also safe to add that since 2018, the city has been working to up its game when it comes to complete streets.
In this case here, is this a transportation issue or just a legal issue as far as the funding? Because this $3 million is coming from the core sales tax. It's not coming from any of the bonds. And this project that we're discussing here, the Sunnyside, is a, if you look at it, they're almost their same basic desire is to make the streets, make the area more livable, safer for everybody in the neighborhood. So I think that they're the same thing. We were just saying we'd like the money for 78 instead of the 22.
guess I'll start. There it goes. Okay. I think one of the things, the issue is that everything is more expensive. So that's one reason that they need money, right? But the other thing is that we do need to sort out what the council chair was saying is there really the focus on the legal issue, or is this a policy interpretation issue? And if we're asserting that it's a legal issue, then it probably would be good to get a memo from the city attorney's office, because I can't see that it is a legal issue, but I'm not an attorney. So.
Thank you, Cindy. Are we ready to move on to other CIP
Sure.
items?
Should we look at that, and then we'll look at overall?
I guess my thought on this conversation we've just had is that, first of all, I don't want us to forget that this is actually an incredible moment with tons of funding for streets that has never happened, and for traffic calming. So, like, this is an unprecedented thing that we're doing this year. And I think my sense of what the council wants is just another policy discussion as to, okay, we've put $8 million into things that could be considered related to traffic calming and complete streets. We just want a little more policy direction on how the projects are prioritized within that $8 million. Does that seem, I mean, I think that's my read on this.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes, definitely. And then I think for me, for Councilmember Dugan's request of changing the $3 million from one place to the Sunnyside project, I'm still a little bit on the fence there. And I think it kind of comes back to Cindy's question that she articulated my rambling better than I did, of like, if this is a legal question, which I just looked at the bond language, I don't really see an ambiguity, but if it's a legal question, then we should probably have a legal answer before, so that I feel more informed of making that decision, right? Because I do think that hopefully that because I need to weigh out the balances there of spreading that $3 million to other projects or putting that $3 million into just one project. But it seems to me like I need a little bit more information, and something from the attorney's office would be helpful for me.
Okay. So moving on, any other CIP? I would say that, first of all, I think all the projects we have on CIP now are great projects. Were there any other comments, questions, concerns, or moves that people are recommending?
I have a comment, not a move that I'm requesting at this time, but I did want to highlight a project that's not recommended for funding. It's number 92, Harvey Milk Boulevard Rainbow Crosswalks. This is a request from the Pride Center to install permanent rainbow colored paving in the street along 900 South, and the location that they identified was 2nd West and 9th South, which to me seems like a great place to do a placemaking landmark project. But my request would be for the administration to maybe put their heads together and think through, is CIP the right place for this? Or perhaps this could be a public art project similar to the Gay Whale that we have further up 9th South. But I think commemorating Harvey Milk Boulevard and also creating a placemaking element at what I think is becoming one of the coolest parts of Salt Lake City, and my district is Central 9th, seems like a great idea. For those of you who don't know, we have the longest Harvey Milk Boulevard in the country, of any city. So I think that that's notable, and maybe it's something that we work on a refined application, work with the applicant on a refined application next year so that it could score a little bit higher. Or maybe it's not something that needs to come through, say, CIP, and it actually happens with the 1.5% for art as a public art competition. I think the administration did an amazing job with the Black Lives Matter mural in front of the city and county building, and I think we have the coolest one in the country because we hired independent artists to kind of to create that mural. And I think that our rainbow crosswalks could be the coolest rainbow crosswalks in the country if we get artists to help us design them.
Yeah, I think your quarter ran out. Sorry, so you have to get Victoria has extra quarters for you somewhere. Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you. And I'm just going to piggyback on what you said, Darren, because there was a project for Sugar House murals. And I was thinking, is CAP maybe a good place for this, but also this might be something to go through the Arts Council and maybe kind of work with these applicants, both with the Harvey Milk crosswalks and with some of these more art-related projects that maybe the Sugar House murals that I love the idea of, but kind of working and putting heads together and saying maybe we can work with these applicants and with some of our local artists to figure out another way that we can help fund it or take from a different bucket almost. Or maybe this is the right place for it. I'm not sure, but it kind of pointed out like, oh, maybe this should have gone through the Arts Council, or maybe there's a way to help fund some of it through the Arts Council or things along those lines. And I think both of those projects that weren't funded might be a good place to kind of see if we can work with them elsewhere, because I think they are important. So that's all on that for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. Councilmember Bowie.
I want to just finish, I support this idea. Placemaking is important in our city, and we need to make, beautiful things and also take care of our infrastructure and the needs that we have. So we need to balance it all out, and I love that this approach with the Arts Council and see if it works out. But I wanted to bring everybody to item 69, which is the Gateway Triangle Property Park. And this is the Triangle Park, or it's a property, a piece of property that the city owns, that the neighborhood has organized themselves to turn it into a park. And I would like to advocate for turning this piece of land into a park. And I tell you, that the Folsom Trail runs by it. And I think it is a very nice bookend to the Folsom Trail. But also the argument that we need more open space in downtown, in an area that is growing a lot. There is a lot of density, and people need places to recreate, walk their dogs and whatnot. And it is a very, for 499,563, we could turn this empty parcel into one community park. I would like the council to support that.
Sorry. Do you want me to sing it again? Just kidding. I think what Councilmember Pui didn't say is that we can use impact fees for this, because I support Councilmember Pui's suggestion. So we wouldn't actually be taking any money away from the proposed projects right now, but adding impact fees to this in order to fund it. So actually that would be my straw poll, is that we use impact fees, add to this, and fund that project at the requested level.
Councilmember Petro.
Since we're pointing to our favorite things that didn't get funded, number 27 is a constituent request.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the straw poll.
We gave a straw poll? How did I miss that?
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry. I thought you were mentioning the straw poll. So there's a straw poll on the table for item number 69, the Triangle Park at $500 some odd thousand.
From impact fees, yeah?
Using impact fees.
Using impact fees. Okay, that's 7-0.
6-0.
6-0. Sorry. Councilmember Baltimore is absent.
But since we've been talking about...
So go back to your...
item number 27 and discussing how much traffic calming money we have right now. The Fair Park, the portion of Fair Park that I represent in particular, west of 1000 West to Redwood Road, is really rife with terrible, terrible traffic designations. I myself have been an offender bender at one of the places with the yield. The circle in front of the rec center is a disaster. We regularly have the bus stop wiped out by people who do not slow down there. And then the 500 North Corridor, we've had multiple young people killed there. And recently we had that terrible police chase that resulted in the overturned car. And the people living on the street there were literally traumatized after that for what they saw. So not just this intersection with 500 North, but the Fair Park area west of 1000 West really does need some traffic calming attention. Honestly, things as easy as signage in that area. Stop asking people to yield when our streets take 40 days and 40 nights to cross over there. Put in stop signs. But I really would like to elevate that area of the city as needing significant traffic calming attention.
So, Councilmember Wharton.
Mine is more of a question that I know I have and Councilmember Valdemoros have about Dinwiddie Park. I have some residents, one in particular, 57, that had a lot of questions about it. It's a pretty small request, 71,000, but I know that it's tied to the lease that we have with, or I don't know if it's a lease, but we have an agreement with the property owner that they're supposed to maintain it as part of their lease. So if we get, it looks like from the notes that legal's already working on getting us an answer on that, but if we could just get a little bit more info for our next meeting, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Puy.
I had 2 items in my previous question, but you preferred spread the wealth around.
From Ben, not all of it can be used, impact fees can't be used for all of it, or is that a different park? And it's confusing things.
So this is a good example of Parks impact fee eligibility. So you could not use Parks impact fees to, say, replace the existing playground that is currently at Topher Park. But you could use Parks impact fees to add new uses to the parts of the park that are underutilized. The top third of the park is green space. There's no assets there. So by using park impact fees, you do limit the potential improvements, but you could use park impact fees for improvements to the areas of the park that are not being used right now.
And this also was 50. Right. So do you have a? Okay.
So I think we'd want to check with the Parks and Public Lands Department. There was a survey of the neighbors, I think it was in 2020, that asked what they wanted to see in Topher Park. I don't know off the top of my head what the results were, and they...
Yeah. Come on up, Kat.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. This is Kat Moss. I'm representing Public Lands today. The constituent request that is currently being proposed is actually for public engagement and planning. So we don't have any amenities specifically outlined with this request right now, but it would be for planning and public engagement, which to my knowledge, we requested general fund dollars because I do not think that qualifies as impact fee eligible.
It doesn't. I withdrew my
okay.
my thing.
I'm with you there. So, Councilmember Fowler.
Yeah, so I actually am still interested in funding that $50,000. I just need to look at where we can take it from in the general fund. So give me a minute, but we'll look at that because I think that park needs the public engagement and it would do a lot of hopefully good eventually over there. So I just wanted to throw that out there as something that I'll be looking at. We have another CIP discussion in August, our last one before we vote, right?
I think so.
Ben?
Yes, Tuesday night. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Are there other?
I have one more, if I may.
Yes.
So this is a question to Ben based on something, and I know that I will probably get looks from Katie and Lisa as well, because they're all smarter than me, but based on something that happened today and that the three of us over here have talked about. But I would like to propose that we put new menstrual hygiene product boxes with free products in all of our men's restrooms as well throughout our city facilities. And I'm not sure if that would actually qualify for CIP dollars anywhere. I mean, technically it's sort of a new asset because we would have to buy all the boxes, like the actual things that we put stuff in. But I don't know the answer. So I was wondering if somebody could tell me the answer.
1, 2, 3. 2 thoughts. Typically, CIP has a $50,000 minimum in the guiding policy. The other thought is CIP is competitive annually, and this sounds like an ongoing supply need. So you may not want this to be competitive every year in CIP. It may be better placed somewhere else.
And that is an excellent point that I didn't think about, Ben. I would be requesting $50,000. That's what I believe we put when we did the women's restrooms, although, what was it, 15? It was 25 originally. Oh, 25.
But I've just confirmed with the Public Services Director that we can just make that happen for you.
I win. Just kidding.
Through CIP, I believe the asset has to be able to be capitalized as well, so the other source would be better.
Okay, and now we're just doing it. So this is awesome. Congratulations, Salt Lake City. This is really awesome. I wasn't expecting it. Verklempt, talk amongst yourselves.
Councilmember Pui.
No, it just feels like we are all like somewhat in the same bandwidth. So we just talked about that today for a thing that happened here. So it's actually very nice that we are on the same thought. So thank you.
Thank you. So I do still want to go back to the item 78, which is the Sunnyside project, and I'd like to do a straw poll on funding that, whether it's from item 22 after we get some legal discussions or some other method, but I would like to look at the straw poll of funding project 78.
How do we straw poll? Again, I'm supportive of this, but how do we straw poll if we don't know where the money comes from? Can we straw poll pending that answer?
So, yeah.
Okay, let's do that then.
Okay.
The straw poll is that we're going to look for a place to get the money, but
we support the project.
Then it fails at that point.
Well,
no, we'll find them.
Is it the straw poll that?
We fund item number 2078.
Yeah, and that our preference is to fund it.
Yes.
From
22.
3 million if possible. If not, then we can look at other areas.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, no matter what legal says, we could still fund it.
Right.
Right.
Despite whatever that is. That's just something I am curious about. So if nobody else is curious about it, then I mean the straw poll could be that we, because I don't think it depends on what the legal opinion is.
Well, my only question is, that's true. I just don't want to be voting to take it away from something if I don't know what I'm taking it away from yet. So I'm okay taking, well, aside from this $3 million or possibly the other $2 million pot for traffic calming, but I don't want to just give a blank check that we would take it if it came from another potential project that's recommended for funding. So as long as that's the
Correct.
vote,
Yes.
then great, let's do it.
That's the straw poll.
Can I make a comment before we? Sorry, I just want to say I support the idea of this request from Councilmember Dugan because I think looking at the GEO bond, the sales tax bond, the CIP list, there is a lack of investment in District 6. I think in some ways I could argue that that's justified because we have greater needs and historic equity has not been invested on the west side.
where we're sitting as much as it has on the East Bench, but I also think that we need to make sure that that everyone's quality of life is improving, and some neighborhoods may have further to go, and we need to invest more heavily in those, but I don't think we should forget neighborhoods, because nobody's neighborhood is perfect. So for that reason, I'm supportive of this straw poll, but I also want to make sure that we're not forgetting that it's justified that more money and more projects are happening on the west side, because historically we haven't invested in that as much, and we have decades to catch up. But thank you.
Sorry. May I have a comment before we actually do our straw poll, because Darren just brought it up, excuse me, Councilmember Mano just brought it up in my brain, and he's right. There is a non-funded project of the California Avenue Safety Improvement Study, considering we're sitting on California Avenue, that I should bring that up. Is this somewhere within other prioritization lists of looking at California Avenue? It's certainly not the first time that we have brought up the safety issues along California Avenue. And I don't know if it's already somewhere within the traffic calming buckets that we're putting out there, or if it's on a list. And if not, then I would actually say that I would support funding the Sunnyside with $100,000 less, and fund the California Avenue Improvement Study with that $100,000. So whatever the request is for Sunnyside, taking $100,000 of that and funding the California Avenue Study Improvement Study.
I'm fine.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. I heard about this so many times. I know who submitted the CIP as a neighbor that is very active, and not only one, but there's a lot of issues with this street. So I appreciate you agreeing to this change, and thank you, Councilmember Fowler.
So that's a straw poll, amended straw poll, adding the 26.
Yes.
It's California. Yeah, it's California Street, 26. Okay, that's a straw poll on the table now. Thumbs up. I got 6-0. Councilmember Fowler Morris is absent.
Can I ask one other question?
You got 30 seconds. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think I got 30 seconds. I am curious about overage charges and things. Do we fund overage? Do we have like a pot for when CIP? Because I thought that we did, but I'm still waiting on projects to get done that we funded a while ago. And do we need to add to that overage pot so that some of my projects can get done? Is there? Can somebody talk to me about that pot?
Council 1, 2, 3. The council has created, and has for as long as I've done CIP, has created a cost overrun account. This is number 2 on the funding log. This year it's asking for $208,000 in additional funding. In attachment 1, there is a formula that determines how much a project is eligible to receive from the cost overrun account without returning to the council in a budget amendment. This was done intentionally so that the administration could quickly get funding for projects that are a little bit over what the estimated costs were, especially if they've already gone out to bid. So waiting, a few months for a budget amendment sometimes can increase costs even more. This is a tool to avoid those delays. The utilization has significantly gone up. My understanding, and perhaps Tammy could speak to this further, is that the projects in the pipeline that already have bids that are over what was estimated significantly exceed the remaining funding in the cost overrun account. So if the council is interested, you could look at adding additional funding this year, or you could also look at the formula that determines how much funding each project is eligible to take. It's based on the total project cost as a percentage.
That is very helpful. Thank you. Sorry, Tammy.
I was just going to add that it is true that costs have gone up significantly over the past few years, and the administration's project teams do try to keep projects still within budget, looking for areas for cost savings where we can. and we do use the cost overrun account. The account still has funding in it, so we can get the council an accurate accounting of what funds are available existing in addition to what's being proposed through this budget. And I don't believe any projects are hung up because of cost increases. We would bring those back to the council. It's just a matter of staff capacity. We're trying to move through these projects as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. And can we talk about this offline again? Just I'm sending you signals to remind me that I'd like to talk to you about this offline.
We'll circle back.
Thanks.
I appreciate Councilmember Pellick bringing that up. My gut, this says that we have 557 currently and that we're adding 208. My gut tells me that's not enough for what's happening with construction costs right now. So I think we should talk about maybe what the two things that Ben said, looking at the formula and or increasing the amount.
They don't like it.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Go ahead, Tammy.
Can I add something before we move on? John just let me know that there is a concrete shortage as well, so that is holding up some of the smaller projects in terms of timeline.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the good discussion on the CIP. I look forward to the next one in a few weeks. Ben, thank you very much. Tammy, John, thank you. Moving on to item number we're going to pass up on item number 10, moving that on to August 9th. Number 11, updating the practice of regarding donations. And we have the city attorney, Katie Lewis, at the table to explain this one. Thank you, Katie.
Hi, City Council members. I'm happy to be with you today. I'm Katie Lewis, the Salt Lake City Attorney. Is the noise okay? It seems a little tinny, but... Okay. Got it. Is that a little better? Cindy Lou? Okay.
Nope.
Not better. Is it my phone? It's my... Do I have metal in me? Okay. Lawyers are robots, so I've got a lot of... Just kidding. Just kidding. So thank you for having me here today. I normally would have Mary Beth Thompson, our finance director, with me as well because she handles many of the mechanics of donations through her department, but she's out of the office today. The city adopted an ordinance governing donations in 2012, and they made some changes in 2020, but really the purpose was to have a process that was uniform throughout all departments and divisions when the city accepted donations, either in kind, voluntary labor, money, or real estate, or items, so that it was all handled the same. Since 2012, and especially in the past few years when many people have wanted to make donations to the city during COVID and other emergencies that we've had, we have identified some issues with the efficiency of the ordinance. And so the council asked the city attorney's office and finance department to come up with some revisions that streamline the donation ordinance, which is what you have before you today. I have an outline of those streamlined changes that I'm happy to go through unless you have questions right off the bat about it.
I was going to ask if we could go through that, but I don't know if you wanted, if the outline you wanted up there or not.
I just have it written for
Okay,
my
perfect.
own
I
purposes.
just-
I'm more than happy to have my technology expert help put the red line ordinance up so that we can go through it if that's helpful. Thank you, Cindy Lou. You're the best. Put that in the record.
Talk to your boss.
All right. Okay. Any other just overarching questions while we're pulling this up? We'll go quickly.
No, I think it's probably in the package on the
there it is.
online.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you could pull up the red line one. Okay.
There's one,
Not that one. Yep. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think one section was all gone.
So I'll start by saying that some of the red lines that you'll see are cleanups, removing definitions that were unnecessary, or just taking out language that we didn't need anymore. So I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I will start with cash equivalent, which is on, oh boy, is it arrows? Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, cash equivalent. So at the bottom of this page, there's actually two on here that we'll start with. The reason that we put in this definition of cash equivalent is one thing that we saw, especially during the pandemic, was people wanting to donate gift cards to the city that then we could distribute to various constituents or groups, and we didn't have a real mechanism for that because we were only really talking about cash or actual property. So that's the first change that you'll see. The second one, a little bit further up, is that we took out a donation consisting solely of volunteer labor. We actually have a different process when volunteers want to come and do work in our parks or things like that. So we didn't want that to be part of this donation ordinance. That's an example of making this a little more streamlined. I'm going to skip through some of these definitions because some of them are just cleanups that we wanted to make that you'll see further down. Okay, thank you, Cindy Lou. Okay, so you'll see section D right here where we added language that says if it becomes impossible or impractical to administer the donation in accordance with the wishes of the donor, an alternate purpose that is related or closely aligns to the donor's intent can be utilized by the city. The reason that we put that in, you can probably imagine sometimes when we've got a donation that maybe spans over a few years and things change and they might want to do something in a park or something like that, that we just want to make one or two little tweaks to, rather than having to go back and have a brand new donation and donation agreement. This gives us a little bit of flexibility. Jump in if you have any questions as I go through. So the next change is, the big one that you'll see is 3.60060. The city doesn't often get donations of real property, but when we do, we had found that these 6 conditions sort of became a laundry list that was onerous for the city to go through before accepting a donation. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't consider these factors, but when you think about a mandatory requirement to go through all of them prior to accepting a donation in an ordinance that has the force of law, we believe that this was better as an internal process or a policy rather than a mandatory list. That's another streamlining concept for the city. Further down, again, the non-monetary donation and the voluntary labor, these are items that we really felt like are often handled in other city policies and practices. Voluntary labor I've already talked to, and the non-monetary donation, really we already either do that or we can, we don't need a donation agreement to go through if somebody's coming in saying, look, can we give you some assistance or some voluntary labor. So I'm going to, my outline is not the same as this, so I'm going to go back to this for a second. But what I'd like to talk with you now about, I know it looks like we just deleted the entire ordinance, and I'm going to go back to it, is the donation agreement section. This is an important section that we've changed because currently any donation of $10,000 above or in kind of $500 or above requires a donation agreement, which can in some instances be too onerous of a process and too time consuming to receive a donation in a very fast time frame. So or $50,000 if it's an in-kind donation. You know, examples of an in-kind donation might be something like actually giving the city trees rather than money for trees, or benches or things like that. So it increases the amount of money. You will see that under letter C, a donation agreement for real property is always required, regardless of the value of the property. Another important concept that we were running up against some efficiency issues with is in section D. And that is, there are sometimes donors that might want to make multiple donations. Let's say over the course of the year they want to do work and provide improvements to multiple city parks. We didn't really have a process for that, and it was onerous to have these donors do a donation agreement for every single donation or project, especially when we didn't always know what they were going to do or what was going to happen. We actually have this situation right now, and so this is going to be something that I think will make our many of our parks and our improvements go more quickly when people are ready, shovel ready to do work for the city. And then we've got a waiver that I want to go through because we've put language in here that the mayor, city attorney, and finance department director together, so all three of them, may waive any of the requirements of this section. So that's when a donation agreement is required, and whether a donation agreement is required. If all three of those people jointly waive in writing the requirement for a donation agreement, then it will not be required. I have an example for that, but I see that Cindy has a question.
Item A, well, I'm waiting for my microphone to start. Item A is, okay, item D, does item D still include item A? So if you have multiple donations, if they all are going to exceed $50,000, then that would be that would trigger the donation agreement.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So the item that is before the city now would exceed. It's multiple donations.
Yeah,
they would probably all exceed.
I believe so, yes, and so that would require a donation agreement, but just one. And you'll see this language in section D that says that it doesn't need to identify each donation with specificity. Really, that agreement can be a framework to say donor X wants to do projects at these 5 parks over the course of a year. It will exceed $100,000 or $50,000 in in-kind services, and for that reason, this is the agreement that lays out the framework. We're open to suggestions on this if this isn't meeting your expectations too. So the example that I wanted to give on this waiver section, just for you to be thinking about it, is there are some instances where the city has an anonymous donation, and that donor does not want to sign a donation agreement, or that maybe somebody has donated some money or something and we can't find that person for whatever reason. So those are the 2 examples that Mary Beth Thompson, our finance director, gave me as why this would be, excuse me, an important waiver to have. It's not a free-for-all. Excuse me, I'm going to get some water.
And Councilmember Petro.
In conjunction with that scenario that you just listed, Do we have a code of ethics for who we would accept them from? I don't want any Epstein money.
You don't want to, excuse me, what kind of money?
Well, Epstein did this, right? Like where he tried to like launder his reputation, and then they try to do it anonymously now, and like,
right?
Do we have a code of ethics for how we organizations or individuals from whom we would accept?
That's a great question, Councilmember Petra Schiller. And the ordinance does currently have kind of a purpose and a framework that talks about a donor approaching the specific department with the specific project or amount of money or use for the money. So we're happy to put some more teeth into that, but we have seen in the past that a donor really is coming to the city and saying, I have $50,000 and I want to honor my mother with a trail. And so we typically, even in those anonymous situations, we may not, we still know who that, at least what their intent is. I don't know if that's a good enough answer. And if you would like more, we can keep working on that. It's not a situation we've seen before, though.
Because we can deny, we cannot accept a donation.
Absolutely. Departments do not have to accept donations.
And I just like to know that it's on our radar. And then in case there was something that was ambiguous, is there a case for that circle outside of those who can do the waiver to be included in the conversations and the deliberations?
Sure. So right now it's the mayor, the city attorney, and the finance director, and they have to put in writing the reason that they not that they are waiving these. So I'm happy to. It sounds like Councilmember Mono, you might have some ideas.
Well, just a question. I have a high degree of confidence in our current mayor, city attorney, and finance department director, but this is an ordinance that will potentially could outlive those three individuals. And so I'm wondering if, just to keep the balance of power structure, if including the council chair or somebody else from the legislative side would be appropriate, just so that like a mayor that cleans house and puts in all new people as interim and does whatever could sort of again, I don't expect that at all under this current makeup, but this is an ordinance that theoretically will outlive the people that are in place right now.
Yes, I want to be sensitive to administrative versus legislative authority. So if you don't mind me giving just a little bit of thought to that, I know this is on the formal meeting tonight, but I'd like to give a little bit of thought to that too. But I appreciate that suggestion.
I think this is an important conversation, but I also don't want to sidetrack this ordinance tonight. I need to, there's interest and people that are really want to help us with lots of deferred maintenance in the city, and I think we can tweak it, we can improve it, but I believe that we need to move on.
Okay, that's fair. I think I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of good in this case. So, okay.
I'll direct your attention to one other legislative versus administrative concept that you may want to think about, and that is 3.60, what is now 140. And this had two reporting requirements to the council. The first was before any donation agreement was executed, and remember those were lower amounts, that was $10,500. The council was informed of a donation that would require a donation agreement, and then there was also an annual reporting requirement. Every single donation agreement report has been eliminated, and this is somewhere where Mary Beth, I think, would have a perspective that reporting, especially with those small numbers, there were a lot of reports to you all, but you may want to think about a report at least when a waiver is being considered. That might be an option, or when donation agreements over a certain period of time or amount are executed. Those might be important to you all because of the size or significance.
Yeah, I would agree there. Yeah.
So we could, if you would like to approve this tonight, maybe we can come up with some language that would, at a minimum, any waivers are reported to you prior to the waiver being issued. And also, do you feel comfortable with an amount over $100,000 and over $50,000 for in-kind, or do you want reports for all of those donation agreements? Because the number is bigger.
I would like it at some dollar amount, whether it's a 50 or 100 or some other level.
I think if we, just kidding, if we change the amounts for the 100,000 for cash or cash equivalents and the 50,000 for in-kind, and we're not doing those small $10,000 amounts or whatever, I feel comfortable with reporting if it's above that 100,000 for cash or cash equivalents, reporting if it's above 50,000 for the in-kind, and then the waiver.
Okay. Okay. So what we'll actually do then is this language B will go back in, because those are donation agreements, but it's the larger amount.
Yeah.
That's in the other section. So that will go back in, but we'll add, the motion will want to add in a report prior to any waiver being issued, so that you all or future councils will have that information. Okay. I don't want to take too much time. I know that you were over. I do just want to talk quickly about all of these that have been deleted, because it really is a lot. But what these were, and I'm sorry, I'm going to take it all the way up here. So the evaluation guidelines. So this is a list of guidelines that any department that was planning on accepting a donation would have to review prior to accepting a donation. So it was a process where someone would come in, they'd want to make a donation. It was this low dollar, often, or small amount. They'd have to go through this process of all of the criteria to accept a donation, and then a donation agreement would need to be executed. So under the framework and guidance from the council that we wanted this to be more streamlined, we took all of this guidance out. And really the thought is some of that could be department by department, because donations are different for everyone, but it also can be a process where the small dollar donations maybe don't need this amount of review, and the bigger dollar donations would be handled with a donation agreement. So that's the streamlining concept there, that's deleted. Those are the main points for the donation agreement. I don't want to take more time than necessary on the technical items. If you have any other questions or things that you would like to add, I'm happy to discuss.
Thank you very much, Katie. Any questions? I think this is wonderful. Thank you for the, I would say, quick turn on this, because this is important for a few of us, and I appreciate that, all the work. Councilmember Pui?
I also want to acknowledge the council staff that flagged this issue, pending some of the, the possible donations and some people that want to donate to our city. So thank you, all of you, too.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're moving on to item number, I should go back in the order here. Item number 10 and 11, nope, sorry. Item number 12 and 13 are written briefings, and you probably have a copy of it in your stack. So we'll be moving on to item number 14, which is our first board appointment to the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and Matthew Morris. All right, Matthew, come on up to the table. Thanks for joining us, Matthew, and thanks for volunteering to be on the Bike Advisory Committee. I appreciate that very much. Tell us some of the reasons why you want to join the committee. Hold on a second. Just count to 3. How about 10? And if you take off your mask, it might be a little bit better. Try the other microphone.
Oh, it's all the metal in my body, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's much better.
Okay.
First off, thank you all for having me here today. My name is Matthew Morris, and I'm a longtime bike commuter. I've commuted in 4 different cities across the U.S., from the West Coast, the East Coast, and now here in Salt Lake. And I'm very much interested in bike infrastructure and also how to improve the lives of those who commute by bicycle, but also just enjoy recreating by bicycle, as well as public transit and other ways of getting around the city. But I noticed a vacancy and also a lack of representation on the west side on the Bicycle Advocacy Committee, and I live 2 blocks from here and really am invested in how we can connect the west and the east sides of Salt Lake for bicyclists, and also north-south connections. So that's sort of my interests in the committee.
Thanks, Matthew. Any comments, questions from the council?
We'd love to have more West Siders on the
Yeah.
road, so love it.
I knew that was going to come out. Matthew, appreciate it very much, and thanks for your engagement and your willingness to participate in this in a great endeavor of putting more of us on bicycles. So you'll be on our consent agenda at tonight's formal meeting.
Okay.
You can hang out here if you want to, or you can ride your bike home in the heat.
I can walk 2 blocks home.
Or you can walk 2 blocks. Thank you very
so
much, Matthew.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
And now we're moving on to item number 15, the board appointment to the Community Development and Capital Improvement Programs, CDCIP Advisory Board, and Brad Christensen. Good evening, Brad. And just give us a little bit of your reasons for why you want to join this group.
Yeah, so I'm Brad Christensen. I've lived in Salt Lake the vast majority of my life, and Poplar Grove for the last 7 or so years, I think. And I actually submitted a project last year that, that's kind of how I learned about the existence of the advisory board. And then as it happens, I've worked in homeless services for 9 years now. And a lot of the emergency services grant money that goes along with that board, I'm familiar with where that goes to. So it seemed like kind of a perfect alignment of my interests and professional experience.
Wonderful. And if you're listening to our other discussions on CIP, it's a great
it was fun.
People of the intent on the CIP project side. Council, any questions or comments for Brad? You're lucky.
All right.
So welcome. As I told Matthew, you'll be on tonight's consent agenda, the full meeting. You can hang out here with us, or your time's yours.
Right.
So
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Okay, Council, we're moving on to item 16, reports to the Chair, Vice Chair. Mr. Vice? I have nothing to report also. And now number 17, the Executive Director, Cindy.
No report.
So I'll just talking about this. We don't have a formal session, closed session tonight, but we will be taking a break, and we'll be coming back at 7 p.m. right here for the formal meeting. There's a red food truck outside, and we'll be providing dinner. Please see the staff at the table next to the truck to get your food vouchers. Grupo will be performing a cultural dance performance in the main hall at the Unity Center at 6:15. Is that right, Cindy Lou? And then so please join us after dinner at our 7 p.m. formal meeting right here. We will have a few recognitions events for the families that have contributed to the making of the city a better place, and for opportunity for public comment.
And just to confirm, this is the adjournment of your work session.
This is the adjournment of the work session. Thank you very much. Victorious wants you back at 7.